and now I have to clip the beginning of this entire live. Okay, snap, let's start again. Welcome to October. Fun fact, it is October, regardless of when you're watching this live. We are starting it all over again because I had the wrong mic, but we got the right mic now, and we are previewing the Eastern Conference, and we're going to start right at the bottom with this team, and we're going to work our way right up to the top, and we're going to answer a question that might be on a lot of Raptor fans' minds after Media Day, which is when will the Raptors be good again? When will this team ever be decent again? Because there was a time, an 8-year window in which the Toronto Raptors, yes, this measly Toronto Raptors outpost, the team that nobody cares about in the United States, this team was the best team in the Eastern Conference for 8 straight years. Per the record, they didn't win the most championships, but they were the best team during that stretch. And they were the best regular season team. And I do believe that there are a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference that are setting themselves up for a 2-year window to succeed. The second apron is creating lots of issues. There are a lot of teams out there that have depleted themselves of draft picks, and they're pretty much going in on a window that I would define as 2024 to 2026. And if it doesn't work out in those 2 years, those teams are going to be cap locked and frankly in hell for a very long period of time. And in the case of the Boston Celtics, it's not going to really matter because they're transferring ownership and it'll be somebody else's problem. And just as these things go, that rebuild will then start then again. And then it'll be a kind of a clear path in the East for whoever rises up. And while I do think that, I believe that there's some coherence to, why people think the New York Knicks and the Boston Celtics and all these teams are at the top of the Eastern Conference. It seems like everyone has pretty much the same take on the Eastern Conference. They think the Raptors, the Hawks, and the Bulls are this kind of middle of the pack team that might be a playing team. They think the Brooklyn Nets and the Washington Wizards and, the Pistons are a bad team. And while I agree with a lot of that, I think that at some point history has taught us time and time again that some of these teams are going to be worse than expected. It's possible that a Milwaukee misses the playoffs. It's totally possible. It's perfectly possible that Miami is worse than a lot of us are expecting because of internal turmoil and Jimmy Butler's contract situation, et cetera. So, you know, we've watched a lot of Raptor teams, we alluded to it in the previous live, that have surprised. Three specifically that I referenced. Number one, 2006, 2007, which I'll always remember for the international flair that was Jorge Garbajosa, Anthony Parker, my gosh, Rasha Nesterovic, Andrea Bargnani, that team. The second team, We the North. Third team, the Redeem We the North. The We the North Part 2 with Scotty Barnes and Gary Trent and Thaddeus Young and Precious Achua hitting threes from all over the place. This team has surprised. This team has surprised many times. Will it surprise this year? We will see. That will depend on a lot of things. So let's get to it, and we will take your call-ins at some point as well. The call-in link is in the description below, and later on I will be clipping the beginning of this. So let's talk, and we're going to go through every single team, and we're going to do two things. One, biggest question facing that team. Number two, their most important guy. Doesn't mean it's their best player. It just means it's the player that is of most consequence to that team. Hang on, let me just try to center myself a little bit because I feel like I'm a little bit off. Here we go. A little bit more centered. Okay. So let's start with the Washington Wizards, who I think have the dubious honor of being the worst team in the Eastern Conference. Congratulations, Detroit. You're no longer the worst team in the league, nor are you the worst team in the Eastern Conference, because the Washington Wizards, this team right here, got rid of what I think was their most impactful player last year, which is Denny Avdija. And they just sent him over to Portland. Rumors abound about why they did that. Is it possible that they perhaps had an issue with him being Jewish and from Israel and proudly being, waving the Israeli flag? Was there some pushback? Is he just not a good enough player for them to warrant that headache with the fans? Who knows? I have no idea. I still cannot understand why they would do this other than, hey, we're going all in for Cooper Flag, and Denny Avdija is a pretty damn good player, and he helps us win right now. In terms of their outlook, I mean, honestly, it's not a stretch to suggest that this team could be god awful. Like they could be 12 to 15 wins bad. Everyone's going to be beating this team. And I really like Bob Carrington. I really do. I really like Bilal Coulibaly. I have a lot of questions about Alex Sarr. I have more than enough sample size on Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole to say I don't want them within 20 feet of my team if I'm running a team. So at this point, I'm going to say they're going to be really bad. I'm going to assume they're going to be bad by design, but they're also really bad just in general. And I'm going to say that their MIG, which is to say their most important guy, according to Darko Rajakovic, this new term MIG, is Bilal Koulibaly. I was tempted to say Bub Carrington. I was also tempted to say Alex Sarr, given the fact that they just spent a second overall pick on him. But I'm not one to care about where you were drafted. I care about the type of player you are. And if I'm looking up and down this roster, yeah, I have some hopes for Bub Carrington being a future six man of the year type of guy, or maybe even a rotation guy. And that's great value to get at the late end of the lottery in a really bad draft. But I think Bilal Koulibaly, had he been in this draft, probably would have been a top three pick. And he's one guy that I've really liked from the pre-draft process. If you followed me for a couple of years, you know that I've really believed in Bilal. And again, I just think that he is primed to take that step up. It's not going to be quite Giannis, but I think that he is the type of guy that has future all-star potential. And that is really the only guy on this team that I can really say that about. So moving on from them, they are really bad. The next team is not pictured here, and that is the Brooklyn Nets. So we're just going to use the Detroit Pistons logo twice because I went through 14 teams. I did this in a rush, and I'm like, damn it, I missed the Brooklyn Nets logo. And then I was like, does my dog get a walk or do the Brooklyn Nets get a logo? And I have decided that no team with Ben Simmons is worth my dog missing his walk. So the Brooklyn Nets do not have their logo up, but the Brooklyn Nets are bad, and they are bad by design. They were bad last year. They fired their coach. They have a ton of roster turmoil, internal infighting. There was like a lot of I've had a lot of concerns for a long time with their ownership structure with Joe Tsai and just the type of organization that they're running. I do have some belief in Sean Marks long term that he's the type of guy who knows what they're doing. And because he knows what he's doing as an executive for the most part, they managed to redeem all of their draft picks back and a lot more in the Mikal Bridges trade to New York. New York is basically feasting, giving a lot of teams a lot of assets to go all in, and they basically gifted the Nets back all their picks, which means the Nets can now be really bad this year, and they're going to be really bad. Nick Claxton is back. I believe he signed a $100 million contract, if I'm not mistaken, for 4 years. So he's locked in long term. Cam Thomas, a lot of questions. Who is their Mig? I did not hear what Ben Simmons said on Media Day. Please enlighten me. Who is their Mig? Is it seriously somebody help me out? I think their Mig is their draft pick. Is that a fair thing to say? I think the Brooklyn Nets are just that bad that you could say there isn't really a franchise cornerstone on that team. Their best player, in my opinion, right now is probably Cam Johnson, followed up by Nick Claxton, followed up by possibly somewhere between Ben Simmons or the Iron Fist. They trash. Yeah, like they're bad. And Ben Simmons, thankfully, is expiring very soon. So that will be some contract off their books. And so the Nets are really aiming to be bad this year and next year. Ideally, whether they get a top three pick this year or they don't, they're going to be considerably bad. And I think they've timed this out perfectly because they'll be at the top of the draft for two straight drafts and probably two very, very good drafts, like two drafts that are ripe with talent. And so they've managed to reset this perfectly. They didn't try to float water. They didn't hold on to Mikal Bridges longer than they needed to. He still had a couple years left on his deal when they let him go, and they feasted on the Knicks' desperation to reunite the Villanova boys. So I think kudos to them as an organization for pivoting when they did. They noticed that this team wasn't going anywhere. Mikal Bridges maybe flashed some star potential when he first got to Brooklyn, but that was quickly shown to be a bit of a beginner's luck. And I think right now they're sitting pretty in terms of the future. But again, all that future is hypothetical. And the team on the screen right now tanked for 2 straight years, was the worst team in the league for 2 straight years, and wound up with the fifth overall pick. So look, tanking has been greatly de-incentivized in the NBA. And there's no guarantee just because you win 12 games that you're going to get anything of real consequence in the lottery. And once again, lottery picks are a crapshoot. And unfortunately, that player is going to have to come into an organization that, frankly, is trash. And they don't have a ton of veteran help. They don't have a ton of development. They don't have a ton of cohesion. It isn't a kumbaya situation like it is with, say, a team like Toronto. So that player is going to come into a situation that might already be inherently dysfunctional. Might be a lot of young players. Might be a lot of me going on. So I think they're going to have to go through a clean house. Probably trade away 80% of their roster, waive guys, expire guys. So they are probably going to be good again, maybe in 2028. And you know, power to them. And at that point, maybe they'll have Cooper Flag and AJ DeBonsa to pair. Who knows? And then we have a lot to worry about. But for now, they just have their draft picks back, which I think is a better position than they were in 3 months ago. Moving on to the Detroit Pistons. The Detroit Pistons are very happy to know that they are no longer the worst team. Unfortunately, they're not the worst team, and the prize at the draft at the very top is the player they most desperately need because Cooper Flag would solve so many problems for this team. I think you could make a case that AJ DeBonsa next year would solve a lot of problems for them. I think Ace Bailey could solve a lot of problems for them. I think there's a lot of players at the top of this draft that this team could really use. Instead, they've opted for Tobias Harris, which is going to raise the floor on just how bad they can be because, frankly, they've already been bad and it hasn't netted them anything. Imagine being so bad for 2 straight years, and the result is two wings who can't shoot. Asar Thompson, I believe in. Ron Holland, I believe in less. I think if you told me right now, Cam Whitmore, Ron Holland, tomato, right? I believe in guys like Jarris Walker a lot more than I believe in Ron Holland. And Asar Thompson's sort of a one-way player. I don't know if his jump shot is fixable. I hope it is. To me, the player of most consequence obviously is Cade, but the most important guy going forward, I'm gonna have to think about this. The most important guy is clearly Cade. I mean, I wanted to get cute and say Asar Thompson. I did because I just believe in his defensive upside so much more, and I think maybe he has some sort of future as some sort of Kawhi OG hybrid. But both Kawhi and OG were so much further along as shooters at his age. So maybe what he materializes into is a very poor man's Meta World Peace. But even Meta World Peace was further along as a shooter. So I'm not really sure where to go with that. It's not just the fact that he's not taking as many shots as he needs to from beyond the arc. It's not just Asar Thompson is not as good a three-point shooter as you'd like him to be. It's literally how he misses. It's how he misses that's scary. So you got rid of Monty Williams, right? Got a new coach in there. Is that an upgrade? I don't know. I thought Monty was a pretty good coach. I think Dwayne Casey was a serviceable NBA coach. It hasn't really worked out for anybody there. So they're going to be really bad this year. They're not going to be bad enough to guarantee themselves, a top five spot. But who knows? Maybe year after year they've been the worst team in the league, and they've ended up with the fifth overall pick. Maybe this year being the fourth worst team in the league, they're going to end up with the top pick and then draft Cooper Flag, and then boom. Either way, I have a feeling Cooper Flag's coming to the East. So Raptor fans, get ready. That is going to be SP saying, "What would we have to trade to get Asar?" Well, I guess it depends on whether the Pistons are bad or whether the Pistons are good. If the Pistons are off to I don't know, what would it take for the Pistons to get greedy on trading Asar Thompson for a win now move? If the Pistons start out like, man, like 8-10, and they somehow start feeling some pressure from Tom Gores to try to be relevant, I don't know. Could an RJ could an RJ Barrett package entice them to give you a contract plus SR? I have no idea, but RJ is probably what it would take. I'm assuming. Okay, moving on from the Detroit Pistons. Oh, their biggest question. Do we do biggest question for the other three teams? Sorry, I need to stay consistent with this. Biggest question for the so I said the most important guy for Washington was Bilal. The biggest question is Alex Sarr good at basketball? I have my doubts. I think that's a really big question to ask. For the Brooklyn Nets, I think the biggest question is what can you do with Ben Simmons' contract? I think it's huge, right? Are you willing to take on long-term salary and take on some more draft capital, or are you just going to let it expire? I don't know. Are you going to? I don't know. Is some team going to get desperate to get off of like long-term money, like a Zach Levine? Do you know what I mean? Like would Chicago give you a first-round pick plus Zach Levine just to get off that money sooner? I don't know. That's the biggest question. The biggest question with Detroit is is Cade Cunningham your guy? You know, for 4 straight years, they've tried to, well, 3 and a half straight years, they've tried to sell themselves on this idea that Cade Cunningham is in fact the player to build around, that he is a guy that you build things around. They've tried to tailor things around him. They tried to put a center around him. They tried to put guards around him. They've tried to put defense around him. And unfortunately, in the NBA, it really does matter that first piece, that first domino with whom the buck stops. That guy that you're building around is the piece of consequence because ultimately, if you're going to put the ball in his hands and he's not very good with the ball in his hands, he's not a good enough playmaker. You know, these are questions that we have about Scotty. I think the most the league has about Scotty is he good enough to be built around. I think some people reserve maybe are bullish on it, but have questions about Paolo. Is he good enough to be built around? I think with Scotty and Paolo, at least they've proven a lot more than Cade to this point. People will argue Cade has been injured. I certainly saw some progression from him over the last couple of years. Like he is trending up. My question is, as up as he has trended for as long as he has played basketball, how much more upside is there to tap in? Because right now, he's 2 years removed on this upside from being a sub all star. Does he continue to get better? Could Cade Cunningham follow a career trajectory closer to DeMar DeRozan? If so, then the Pistons might actually have something. Unfortunately for them, what they have is still a player who, under no circumstances, was worth the first overall pick because DeMar DeRozan was not worth the first overall pick. But I think if he becomes DeMar DeRozan, like if he becomes DeMar DeRozan adjacent, granted, he is still really far away from this. I think they could at least sell themselves on the idea that they can be middle of the pack. But as we found out in Toronto, if you want to win a ring, you're going to need a player a lot better than DeMar DeRozan to do it for you. So I think the biggest question for them is he the type of guy who's going to take a quantum leap at some point? Or is he the type of guy who's going to flatline? Or is he the type of guy who's ever going to be healthy? I think there's a lot of questions about Cade Cunningham. And, you know, good luck to good luck. Good luck to the Detroit Pistons on figuring that out. But my favorite player on that team, honestly, Hussar. Hussar is my favorite player on that team for sure. Okay, next up. This is going to surprise some people. No, not really. The Charlotte Hornets. Now, Brandon Miller is a lot better than I expected. LaMelo Ball, I have some questions, like really long-term durability, maturity, defense. There's a ton of questions. Is he the type of player you win with? Miles Bridges, right? Mark Williams. There's some pieces here. There's some decent pieces here. And I think you could really, if you squint hard enough last year, I know he wasn't necessarily a net positive per the analytics, but man, I think Brandon Miller was about as good as it gets for a rookie wing. I think he showed some real all-star potential. You have two very potential future all-stars, one of whom has already been an all-star, one of whom could be an all-star, and such is the case when you actually start hitting on some of these top 3 picks. I think Mark Williams is somewhat underrated. He's going to be injured for a little bit, but I still think they're going to be bad this year. I really do. I don't think they have enough defensively around that core. I think, you know, the loss of certain veterans on that team. There's a certain cocktail that you need to actually win basketball games in the NBA, and I don't think they have it. Shizo rambling saying so many people have the Hornets being a P. I don't know what a P is. LaMelo going to be wearing ankle braces this season, so maybe he won't get injured. We shall see. Unfortunately, that entire family has been injured, and that might just be genetic at this point, so I'm not really sure. The biggest question for them, well, their most important guy and their biggest question are somewhat linked, right? Their most important guy is Brandon Miller. I would love to tell you it's LaMelo Ball, but at this point, I think that boat has that ship has sailed. I think the biggest question is, are LaMelo and Brandon Miller as a tandem something that works or something you need to swap out? Because right now, I think LaMelo Ball on a max contract still has a tremendous amount of value around the league, right? I think he's young enough. He's, I think, 23 years old at this point. I think he's still young enough that most teams are willing to buy it on a, I don't call it a rehab because he's still a really good player. He's still very effective when he's ready. I think someone could really sell themselves on him being a very elevated version who can kind of shoot of Josh Giddey. And maybe that's the type of person, that's the type of player you can get a good young player and a couple of first round picks for. Or maybe this is one of those situations where you could swap him for, I don't know, a Trey Murphy, something like that, something that fits a little bit better. I have no idea. So I think you have to kind of ask yourself if these two players fit. And if so, what do you need around them? What's that third piece? Is it Miles Bridges? Is it an upgrade at the point? Is it an upgrade at the wing? Like what is that third piece that needs to go with these guys? Okay, Hermes Curry Bro saying Lamelo the same age as Scotty thought he was a year older. Well, they have one interesting thing in common, and I'll let you figure out what that is. Next up, the Atlanta Hawks, a very deep team that really I'm somewhat shocked that I have at 11th right now, right? Very shocked because moving off DeJounte Murray could be seen as a positive decision for this team because they got one of my favorite young players in the league in Dyson Daniels. They also got the guy that I would have picked first overall in Zachary Risachet. They also have a lot of players that I really believe in. Jalen Johnson is a player that I absolutely believe in. Onyeka Okongwu is a player that I have hyped to hell. I was on record saying Onyeka Okongwu was what I wanted back in a Pascal Siakam trade. I was saying Onyeka and the since retired AJ Griffin was the package that I wanted back. And every Atlanta Hawks fan told me I was insane. I wonder if they still feel that way a year later, because I certainly don't feel that way. Onyeka had a bad year. AJ is out of the league, and c'est la vie. Pascal Siakam is still a all-star level performer in the NBA. That would really help them right now. They could really use a Pascal Siakam. They don't have a Pascal Siakam. They have a lot of middling pieces, but I think there's a vision of this that actually works really well. Like when I say really well, I mean absurdly well. When I say absurdly well, I mean they could be better than the Caps because in theory, they have a lot of really good players. They do. Clint Capella is a pretty good player. I think Bogdan Bogdanovich is a really good player. Okay, so you got two veterans. You got Jalen Johnson, who took a bit of a jump last year. Is there another jump in him? Jalen Johnson, while he is nowhere near the playmaker of Scotty Barnes, has the exact same physical profile as Scotty Barnes. He might be a lot burstier than Scotty Barnes too. Same wingspan, same height. He's got slightly bigger hands. Like he's a pogo stick and he's a transition terror. And if they start taking their defense with Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson is a slight plus on defense, but you got Clint Capella back there, you got Onyeka Okongwu, you got some plus defenders on this team. If they could take some of that, DeAndre Hunter is a pretty good defender. If you could take some of that defense and turn it into transition offense, you've got some really elite playmakers on this team like Trey Young. And I could really sell myself on this team being good. I mean, I believe so much in some of their young players. So why the fuck do I have them 11th? I just don't think it's going to work chemistry wise. I have a feeling that, again, I believe in Landry Fields. I really do. As an executive, I think he's one of the better ones. And really, I think I as much as people have sort of clowned their direction and maybe even don't like the Zachary Risachet pick, honestly, this is a team with a very bright future. It is. Dyson Daniels, Zachary Risachet, sign me up. Okay. This is a wing duo that I can get behind. Okay. They don't have a second star right now. I think that's fair. They don't really have a second star unless you can really squint and, sell yourself on Jalen Johnson being that guy. So there is a world in which this really works out really well. But in order for that to happen, Trey Young has to let it happen. And I'm not sure Trey Young's about to let that happen. I think this is going to be one of two teams in the Eastern Conference that are going to be way worse than their record should be. And I also think if they start out poorly, this is the type of organization that will see the draft pick at the end of the line and probably squander it. Now, someone correct me if I'm wrong. Do they have a draft pick this year? or do they owe it? Because if they owe it, I have to change my projection because I have a feeling it was either this year or the previous year that I knew that they did not have control of their draft pick. So I'll have to check on that. But the biggest question for me, for the most important guy, first of all, the most important guy for this team, I'm going to say Jalen Johnson. If Jalen Johnson can step into all-star form and provide a legit second option, right? To Trey Young, be a great pick and roll, pick and pop partner with him. I think this could work. I know that Trey Young's value is in the dumps right now because the narratives swing public appeal and public opinion. And I understand Tyrese Halliburton is everyone's golden boy right now, and I like Tyrese Halliburton a little bit more than I like Trey Young. But Trey Young is way better than his reputation right now. Like, way better. He is so talented. He's a very talented basketball player. And frankly, neither of them play a lick of defense. So, frankly, I don't want to hear any of that. Situation, results, recency bias all play into that. But please remember, just a couple of years ago, Trey Young and the Atlanta Hawks, the trash Trey Young and trash Atlanta Hawks, were in the Eastern Conference Finals. So, this is a guy who's fully capable of being the best player on a team that makes it all the way to a conference finals, which is not something you can say about most players that are in his position and with his current reputation. And he's still in his mid 20s. You could argue that the fit between him and DeJounte just wasn't right. It kind of disrupted chemistry. It made both players uncomfortable. Is this going to free him up? So there's a world in which this is the team. If I had to bet on one team that I am almost certainly wrong about, it is this team. I am a lot higher on them than I'm putting them. I just think they're going to make some trades. I think they're going to overemphasize playing some young guys, and there we go. Okay, they owe their pick in 2025 and 2027. Okay, so therein lies the problem for being bad. So that's troubling. I had a feeling that was the case. Okay. Well, now I have egg on my face. I don't know where to put this team. I think Dyson Daniels is surprisingly good. I really do. I think spacing could be a little concerning, but I really liked him for Australia, and I've liked him the entire way through. I've watched the guy live many times. I think he's a phenomenal young player. I think his defense, like honestly, here's the thing. Y'all know I love OG, right? I love OG. But every single time I hear OG described as like the best perimeter defender, the only thing I can think about in my head is Dyson Daniels almost as good as OG Anunoby as a defender? Like they're so close to me. Like if you're asking me to measure just defensive capability, I'm not talking reputation, I'm not talking any of that. I'm just talking like straight up watch them play defense, check their numbers, dude, Dyson is close. Like he's really close, but he has none of the fanfare, none of the appeal, none of the buzz. If Dyson Daniels was on on the Hawks, oh sorry, if he was on the Knicks right now and OG was on the Hawks, I think people would be picking like the Hawks to be really really good, and for the Knicks to be really really bad. This is sometimes what happens. Dyson's numbers is like if you just watch him play defense, he is really one of the top 20 defenders in the league, and he's going to play a lot of minutes for that team. I don't know how ready Zachary Ricochet is, and maybe that is the important question to ask. Their most important guy for me, I think their most important guy is Jalen Johnson. I think the biggest question mark is how ready is Zachary Ricochet to be a rotation player for you? Because if he's ready to be a rotation player, I think that opens up a world of trade opportunities potentially for DeAndre Hunter. I think that that changes sort of the trajectory for this team in terms of going forward. Like, and I just really like the fit. Like, you got to think about this. I think Zachary Ricochet will be a positive defender. I think Jalen Johnson is an okay defender. I think Dyson Daniels is an overwhelmingly positive defender. Whoever you put at that center spot, honestly, the Hawks have a chance to run Trey Young with four elite transition defenders and offensive players, like guys who can really thrive in transition. Dyson does really well in transition. So I just feel like this Atlanta Hawks team has a chance to be like really good. And the biggest question for me is, what's the timeline with Zachary Sachet? He's physically very, underdeveloped. Will he be a 3 to 4 year guy? Or, where, you're going to see the dividends on his next contract? Or is he the type of guy where his intelligence, his size, and just the fact that he's playing with such a gifted playmaker is going to make him somewhat competent in year two, end of year one? Could he be a guy who gives you some 3 point shooting and, you know, 10 points per game right now? I think there's another sub question, which is this the team that potentially has the assets to go after another star when one becomes available, like a Brandon Ingram? Could they potentially flip one of their young players plus DeAndre Hunter and then get Brandon Ingram to pair with this long team? Like I think this is a possible, landing spot for him. Okay, moving on. But yes, them not having their pick does complicate things and honestly makes the Spurs really scary. Next up at number 10, we have the Miami Heat with Jimmy Butler in a precarious situation. Oh man, Gregory, thanks a lot for the super chat. I really appreciate it. And thank you to the 129 of you currently in here on this impromptu live that started out abysmally with bad audio at 12:40 checking us out. Thank you so much. Okay, the Miami Heat. This is a team where a lot of the young players recently make sense. Now, I was not high on Kalal Ware. I feel like every year there's one pick that I'm just like, I don't like this guy. I don't like this guy. And he ends up being really good. And it's like without fail, every draft has one of those guys. 2021, 2021, who was it? The guy that I most didn't like, and then he turns out kind of good, Jalen Suggs, right? I didn't like Jalen Suggs. He turned out pretty good. Then in 2022, the guy that I didn't like was Paolo. Ironically, I was just like, man, this guy's so overrated, et cetera, et cetera. He turns out pretty good. Ben Matherin also I did not like very much, but jury is still out on him. 2023, it was Brandon Miller. I think 2024 it's going to be Kalel Ware. I think it's going to be Kalel Ware. Nikola Jovic is a pretty damn good player. Jaime Jaquez was one of my favorite rookies last year, and I really love him. So I really like what they're building up there. Unfortunately, Jimmy Butler is, I think, 35 or 36 years old, and he is not getting any younger. I didn't really understand the Terry Rozier, element of this, the trade last year. I thought it was very knee-jerk reaction. I didn't like it because, it led to Kyle Lowry getting traded to Charlotte, and thankfully he never played for Charlotte, but it felt in poor taste, honestly. Kyle Lowry deserved better than that, and then he ended up going to Philly, and he's still in Philly, so it's great. But overall, the takeaway of this is that I don't think the Miami Heat are going to be good, regardless of what Jimmy Butler says. Jimmy Butler is about Jimmy Butler. Okay, this is not a guy that you want walking into a season with his general manager slash president calling him out, saying he should have played, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe this tough love shit works when he has the guarantee of a 4 year contract. I don't think it's necessarily going to work when he's on when he's hanging by a thread and he wants one last payday. He's not stupid. Jimmy Butler is an entrepreneur. This is the guy who was trying to sell people, I think, $20, $30 coffee during the bubble. Like this is a guy he cares. He's an entrepreneur. He's thinking long term. So he wants one final bag. Okay. And this is a player who increasingly hasn't played a lot of games in the regular season. And every single year, the Miami Heat are just able to turn it around. And I just don't think this is going to be one of those seasons. Now, granted, in this scenario, they do end up in the play in. If I had to rethink this, I think there's a world in which they shift pivot away from Jimmy Butler at some point. Maybe they trade him to a contender at the trade deadline. Maybe he sulks. Maybe he gets hurt. But I'm not sure how this team is supposed to be really good. I understand that Eric Spoelstra is probably the best coach in the NBA, and I understand Bam Adebayo is probably a top 5 center in the NBA. He's definitely a top 3 center in the East. If that's fair, top 3 center, top 2 center in the East. He's a really good player, but he alone is not going to catapult this team. I think there's a lot of youth that need some minutes. So yes, the highest I think this team could be is 6th. The lowest I think they can be is 10th or 11th. So the most important guy for them at this point Another team kind of lacking that franchise cornerstone type, but let's just say Bam Adebayo is the most important player in terms of player of consequence. It'd be very interesting to see Bam Adebayo, who's a very skilled player and a great defensive player, coming off the Olympics. He was at times their best option at center, and that's saying a lot given some of the other options at center, Joel Embiid, Anthony Davis. The USA team was stacked, and yet I feel some of their best minutes came with Bam Adebayo. Can he morph into a go-to scorer? I think this is a question we've had with Jaren Jackson. I think this is a question we'll eventually have with Evan Mobley. Some guys are not cut out to be big time scorers. Is Bam always going to be kind of a secondary creator, or is he willing to be more of a primary guy? I don't know if it's in his game. I don't know if guys just develop this later on, but I think he is their most important guy. Their biggest question mark is what to do with Jimmy Butler. I think that is their biggest question mark because the minute you trade him, honestly, it's rebuild time. Your team is too young. Tyler Hero is not good enough. Bam Adebayo is not a franchise player. You need to tank. And at that point, the Miami Heat don't really believe in tanking. They're almost never bad enough to tank. They almost never draft in the bottom five. So, when is the last time the Miami Heat had a bottom five pick? It was the Michael Beasley. Before that, it was Dwayne Wade. Can you think of another one? This is just not a team that bottoms out, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Okay, let's move on to the next team, and this one is going to be the Chicago Bulls, the baby Bulls. Look, man, I am unusually bullish on the Bulls. Yes, I was saving that in the holster, and I let it go. Look, Matas Buzelis, apart from Reed Shepard and Nikola Topic and Zachary Risochet, is one of my 4 favorite rookies. God, you know what's so funny? This draft is supposed to be so trash, and yet I ended up really liking 6 rookies. Montas is one of them. And everything I've heard about him since from a friend of mine who covers the Chicago Bulls is just watch out for this kid. He's going to be really good. Lonzo is back. And those of you who followed us long enough know that I love Lonzo Ball. Lonzo's a backup. If he's healthy, he is the best backup point guard in the league. And that is a shocking amount of depth. And I mean, of course, he's been off forever. Is he the same player? But honestly, his game was never predicated on speed or quickness. His game was predicated on size and intelligence, and that doesn't go away with injury. That being said, a lot of his value that he provided was as an athlete, as a defender. When Lonzo was on the court, and it feels like what I'm describing is like 100 years ago, but when Lonzo Ball was on the court, the Bulls were a really good team. Lonzo Ball contributes to winning in ways that Zach LaVine simply could not even dream of. He does everything right. He's a great passer. He's just this incredible help defender. His point of attack stuff is good. And again, you've traded away Alex Caruso, you've lost DeMar DeRozan, and you've gotten back Josh Giddey. So clearly the direction is youth. You've also drafted Matas Buzelis. Rumors are he's going to play a lot. You've got Patrick Williams back. He's probably going to play a lot. Kobe White was a bit of a revelation last year. Ideally, he's going to play a lot. And then you got Zach LaVine, a big question mark for me. And that has to be the biggest question mark. What to do with Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic. It's kind of like the lost, almost like the last bits of a previous timeline that never succeeded. You know what I mean? You've got these. It's almost the weirdest thing. You've got this team that's probably not going to be very good. That has this one very fun version of themselves, which includes Josh Giddey and Kobe White running sort of like a dual 2-headed point guard with athletes and corner shooters everywhere, and Ayo Dosunmu coming off the bench. And that team will be really fun to watch, but really bad. And then you have Nikola Vucevic and Lonzo Ball and Zach LaVine, who are still really good players in the NBA. I don't want to hear anything about Zach LaVine. I understand a lot of people think he's trash. He is not trash. He's a really good player. He's not worth his contract. Sure, we can argue that all day. But he is a significantly above average starting shooting guard in the he's a significantly above average shooting guard in the NBA. He could help a lot of teams right now. His creation, his shooting, just overall, I understand his defense is ass, and sometimes teams look better without him, etc. But I think he's a valuable player type. I think he's valuable in terms of the dynamicism that he brings on the basketball court. And, who knows, man? This team has a lot of ingredients. Can they mesh? Can Billy Donovan get them to mesh? Can he get these two weirdo timelines to work? Because they got like 7 or 8 guys that are like real NBA players. Can it work? There's only one basketball, and you got 3 players who need actually, you need 4 players who need the basketball a lot. You got Lonzo, who needs the basketball a lot, although he's great off the ball as well. You got Kobe White, who needs the basketball. He's also pretty good off the ball. You got Zach LaVine, who needs the basketball, but he's also pretty good off the ball. And then you got Josh Giddey, who's probably not very good off the ball, as we found out in OKC. So I think that's the most important guy. I think, I'm torn. I want to say Matas Buzelis. I'm probably wrong on that though, right? Look, I really, 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 really hate Carl Malone. And if you understand what I'm saying by that, you'll understand why the Josh Giddey allegations and all of his storyline has soured me incredibly on Josh Giddey. If I can remove that from the equation, which is very much tainting my bias and my feelings towards Josh Giddey and whatever may have happened and innocent until proven guilty, and we don't know anything. I don't know. Mistakes happen. I'm gonna pray. I'm gonna pray that he's a better person than the reputation that I believe he has. Okay. He should be their franchise cornerstone. He's a hella talented playmaker. He can't shoot very well, but he is really, really good as a playmaker. Like he is like it's absurd how gifted he is as a passer at his size. That type of passing is something that you can really, really spark an entire offense through. And again, he's not quite the defender of a Ben Simmons, so I'm not necessarily talking like that. He's not anywhere close to the overall athlete and all around player that Scotty Barnes is. But jumbo playmakers are all the rage for a reason. They provide a lot of advantages and they don't grow on trees. Okay. There might be one in this draft coming up that's as good as he is. So he's really young. And somewhere between him and Kobe White, hopefully they have an all star. Somewhere between those two guys. If neither of them materialize into an all star, I guess all hopes are on Matas Buzelis. In terms of the question, I guess the question is, can you meld these two timelines cohesively, or can you get something of value for players like Nikola Vucevic and Zach LaVine? Okay, moving on. Oh, we got the baby dinos. We got the Toronto Raptors. Okay, all the talk in training camp. Sorry, not training camp. Media day was we're not going to win 65 games. We're rebuilding, et cetera, et cetera. And it's funny because the messaging is sort of mixed, right? And we're going to talk a lot about the Toronto Raptors right at the end of this when we talk about the future of the Eastern Conference. But one of the things that I found to be very easily discernible about this entire situation is that the players and the organization are speaking differently about what they expect to happen. RJ Barrett is talking about, being good. Like he's talking about picking up higher. He's talking about being a good defender, being a good, all around player. Scotty's talking about winning. Emmanuel Quickly's been in the gym all summer doing crazy stuff. Grady Dick's been lifting. Talked about it earlier. 10% better. If all these guys are 10% better, you're way too good to tank. At which point, chemistry, cohesiveness, how well your pieces fit together, how intelligent your players are, how lucky you are with injuries, how lucky you are with the schedule, when do you catch teams napping, all this stuff. I'm telling you, there's a really good chance the Raptors win 40 games. And a lot of people are going to say it's surprising, but it won't be surprising to me. In terms of, and again, we will talk way more about the Raptors towards the end of this because this is more of a Raptors podcast. But in terms of the most important guy, obviously it's Scotty Barnes. And the most important question, honestly, the biggest question for this team is Scotty Barnes closer to a first team All NBA guy or a sub All Star guy? Because a lot of people, every time I say he's an all star, they say, but he was an injury replacement. But he was an injury replacement. But when he made it, he still had a lot of data from being, second fiddle to Pascal Siakam, and he had OG Anunoby helping him. Well, now he doesn't have Pascal and he doesn't have OG, and so now he's going to have to make All Star without those guys. And so, okay, fine, you make All Star, but All Stars don't necessarily win championships as a first option. Typically, you need one of those top 6 guys. So I was listening to the Low Post podcast. Good podcast. Zach Lowe. shout out Zach Lowe, got fired, got laid off by ESPN recently. But on his podcast, he and Seth Partnow went deep into the Toronto Raptors, and they talked about how there are some existing doubts that Scotty can never be a top 10 player in the league, and they're not putting it out of the realm of possibility. I think this year has to be a definitive answer to that. There's no more training wheels. There's no more Fred VanVleet. There's no more dysfunction. This is your team now. And whether you like it or not, that's what it is. Okay. And so I think that's the question. Is he a is he an all NBA kind of guy? Or is he a sub all-star guy? Because if he is an all NBA guy, it changes your timeline, it changes how you're building, it changes when you expect to be good. And just for the record, he's an all NBA guy. Okay, moving on to the next team, and this is seventh. And this is the woefully underperforming Indiana Pacers. I have them underperforming for one key reason: defense. The other key reason is while I do believe in some of their young players, specifically Ben Shepherd, Ben Matherin, to some extent Ben Matherin, not as much Ben Matherin. I really believe in Jarris Walker, and I really believe in Andrew Nemhard. I just think that Pascal Siakam regression that that I kept talking about is just going to come. And again, I could be proven wrong. He could be friggin' third team All NBA this year due to a slew of injuries, and he could provide. He could prove to be very important. But I'm just on the fence about their interior defense. I'm on the fence about their rebounding. I don't think they rebound well. And I don't think enough people talk about that. See, it's not bad enough that they really don't contain at the point of attack, because they really don't, right? You can say Andrew Nemhard is an okay defender. Ben Shepherd, Ben Matherin's not a good defender. Pascal Siakam at this stage is not a good defender. I don't think he's a bad defender. I just think when motivated, he's an okay defender. Obi Toppin is not a good defender. Miles Turner is a good shot blocker, but overall in the team scheme, he's not the greatest defender. He's definitely not a great rebounder. So again, at some point, you are going to have to guard, right? The defense travels, right? And so the hey, Indiana went to the Eastern Conference Finals, and I think there is a lot of optimism around that. I think there are some people really genuinely believe that this team could be a top 2 seed in the East. That this is the team among the non top 4 that has the best chance of sneaking into the top 4 because of a few things. And I'll give you the bullish side and I'll give you the bearish side. The bullish side is that Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam had almost no time to gel together. That by the time Siakam came on the team, Halliburton was pretty much hurt. He had to miss a ton of time. We all know that he played a few extra games that he probably shouldn't have because he was trying to chase all NBA because of the contract implications, et cetera, et cetera. But that being said, Pascal Siakam now has had a kind of full year to gel with his teammates. Rick Carlisle has a better opportunity to gel some of those pieces. Some of their ancillary pieces are young, they're growing. Jarris Walker could take a step up. He would solve a ton of defensive problems for them if he's ready to go this year. And then you also have to consider that most people still think Ben Matherin is a really good basketball player. I am not one of those people, but some people think he is the difference maker between a competitive series against the Knicks or the Boston Celtics and a not competitive series, that they could have really used his offense. I'm still a believer that their defense is shit and that their rebounding is terrible, and I don't see how Ben Matherin is going to help with that. If anything, sometimes some injuries are addition by subtraction. The fact that he didn't have Ben Matherin meant a lot more minutes for Andrew Nemhard and a lot more minutes for TJ McConnell, both of whom I think are really good, but both of whom are really clunky fits defensively next to Tyrese Halliburton. So, there's a lot of questions here. There's a lot of questions to ask here about this team. In terms of their MIG, obviously it is Tyrese Halliburton. This team will go as he goes. If he's healthy, I think there's a lot of optimism around the fact that he really wasn't healthy during the last year's playoffs. And look how good we were, with him unhealthy. A lot of teams were unhealthy in the East, man. The Celtics walked through an Eastern Conference where nobody was healthy. So as much as, Indiana's going to say, hey, man, we weren't healthy and that's why we were so, we're so optimistic. It's like, hey, the Knicks team that you faced wasn't healthy either, right? So I think the biggest question for them is Pascal Siakam the type of second option that can win you a championship? Is this pairing a good enough dynamic duo to win a championship? Right? Because again, much like the Phoenix Suns or the Harden Rockets found out, It's very difficult to win championships when you don't really play great defense, or when you're trying to hide multiple bad defenders. It's difficult. It's really difficult. You have to be all-time world beaters offensively, and you know, Pascal Siakam has a tendency to kind of slow the pace down a little bit, crawl it to his own pace. And so, can he play faster? Can he get back to a little bit more transition Siakam? I don't know. That Canadian saying, that Knicks team also going to give Pacers problems now that they got Cat. Wait till you hear my take on Cat. Okay, moving on. The Orlando Magic, the defensive juggernaut, Orlando Magic. Speaking of teams that have a lot of young players that I really believe in, don't tell me that I can't change my mind about a player. Jalen Suggs has become one of my favorite guards to watch in the league. I love how he competes, man. On every freaking possession, he is so annoying. He is so goddamn annoying to watch. KCP is a longtime role player that I really believe helps you win. Anthony Black, I know he didn't play a lot last year, but I really like him, and I think he's a really good defender. Then you got Jonathan Isaac, again healthy, hitting threes. Shout outs to Jonathan Isaac, the judo ones, his own basketball shoe, God first. And then you got Paolo and Franz, Wendell Carter. This is a really deep team. This is a really deep team, and they've got a core four young guys. I didn't even talk about Jett Howard. He was a lottery pick. I mean, I know he was a lottery pick. I wouldn't have picked him in the lottery, but for namesake, he was a lottery pick. He was the 11th overall pick before Grady Dick. So, I mean, this is a team that has an abundance of depth. I believe they still have Caleb Houston. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. They have a lot of young players. They have some flexibility and maneuverability. They do have Cole Anthony, who's another young player, youngish player, who used to be a long time ago. Cole Anthony was like a top three recruit, 5-star recruit, top three player in high school basketball. They got a lot of talent, a lot of talent. The most important guy is, I'm going to say it's Franz. I'm going to say it's Franz Wagner, and that's just me being a Paolo hater for life. Okay. I know that Paolo is supposed to be their best player, but I think their most important guy is Franz because ultimately we kind of know what Paolo is going to be. He's going to be a 6'10 jumbo creator. I think the biggest question for them is, can Paolo become more efficient? Because if Paolo can become more efficient, here's a fun fact about the Orlando Magic that you probably don't know. Do you know they have been a bottom 10 defense for the last 12 years? Consistently. This predates Paolo Banchero. Paolo Banchero was 10 years old, 11 years old, and they were still a bottom 10 defense. The offense. They've been a bad offensive team for a really long time. Like literally, there has been no good offense in Disney World for a really long time. And again, this has been partially because of roster personnel. Maybe this is just a curse. I have no idea. But honestly, they need to figure out a way to be above average offensively. And if you replace Paolo with Luca right now, like just swapped one for one, you would be an above average offense like that. That's the gap. So really, the most important guy I would say is Franz because I just think he's just that damn good. But I think in terms of the biggest question I have, it is, can Paolo Banchero be an efficient player? Can he become better? Because last year, I believe if the math is correct on this, they were 7 points worse with Paolo on the court. There's a lot of noise in that sample size. I do want to say that. I've come a long way on Paolo, but yeah. And I think if there's a second question is, who's your point guard? Because you're gonna run KCP as a starter. You paid him a ton of money. You're gonna start Franz. You're gonna start Wendell Carter. You're gonna start Paolo, which means your point guard right now is Jalen Suggs. And I'm personally on the record saying I don't think he's a great point guard. So if Jalen Suggs can continue shooting the way he's shooting, he's an okay passer. He's not the most efficient self creator, which is typically a skill set you want in that point guard spot. Obviously, the ball is going to run through Paolo a lot, so it's not really going to matter all that much who you're going to be running at the traditional point guard. That's not John Stockton, but it will be interesting to see how they compensate for some of the loss of creation that they lose with Markel Fultz. The Cleveland Cavaliers up next. Sorry, Vince. I told Vince to call in at 12:40. and now I am a little bit behind schedule. I got 5 more teams to run through. My bad. I'm gonna try to run through them pretty quickly, but my bad. Hang tight if you can wait, and then we'll get into the future of the East. Um, Give me about 10, 12 minutes, buddy. Maybe a little bit more. And then we can discuss these two. So let me buzz through the next 5 and then we can talk about it. Okay, Cleveland Cavaliers. I have them at 5, right? I believe I have them at 5, right? And wait, do I have them at 5 or do I have them at 4? I have them at yeah, I do have them at 5. Okay. Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland. This is the biggest question. This has been a question forever about whether or not these two players can play together. This sort of undersized backcourt. I think that is the biggest question. That has been the biggest question. It feels like this team has a lot of great ancillary pieces around these guys. I think Max Strus was a good sort of thing with them last year. Karis LeVert, Jared Allen. Their most important guy, though, am I going to sound crazy? I know he's not their best player, but I think their most important guy is Evan Mobley. He's 22 going on 23. If I'm not mistaken, he's still 22. I've been liking some of the stuff I've been seeing from him this offseason. If he can morph into much more of an offensive player, because he took a step back last year, I think this team could be like really, really good because Donovan Mitchell, in and of himself, is, in my opinion, the best shooting guard in the league. You can give some points to Devin Booker. You can give a look see to the Finals MVP Jalen Brown, but I think Donovan's better. And I guess I'm curious to see how long he'll stay at that level because he's a little bit undersized himself. He's had some injuries, but for now, until further notice, Donovan Mitchell is hella good. So we'll see if there's something of value they can get for the $34, $35 million paid player in Darius Garland. If those two work together, Darius Garland and Evan Mobley took a bit of a step back last year, and that wasn't the greatest to see. Jared Allen was hurt for a bit. I think this is a team with an abundance of talent. I think they are one trade away, like one swap one piece for another piece away from clicking it all together. And I think when they click it together, it's going to be really scary. And I think this is one of those rare teams that hasn't completely mortgaged the future for the present. So, unlike the next 4 teams that we're going to talk about who have all mortgaged the future, this is one team that is currently good and expects to be good for the next 3 to 4 years. Plus, they've locked up Donovan Mitchell long term, if I'm not mistaken. So, I do think that there is some upside here in terms of their biggest question. Again, as I said, how do these pieces fit together, and at what point can you swap one of those mal-fitting pieces for another piece? And maybe, just maybe, that means trading Darius Garland, who is young relatively, for a Brandon Ingram. Wouldn't that work? Do you have to give a pick to make that swap? I don't know, but it's worth it because Brandon Ingram would fit in beautifully in Cleveland. Let me know what you think about that. If you're watching this later, let me know in the comments what you think about Brandon Ingram in Cleveland. Okay, moving on to the upper echelon. Now, next up, my least favorite coach in the NBA, Doc Rivers. Coaching one of my favorite point guards in the NBA, Damian Lillard. Coaching ex-Raptor, Gary Trent Jr., who they got highway robbery on a minimum contract. I think Gary's a pretty decent player for a minimum contract. And of course, everyone's favorite player, Thanasis Antetokounmpo. Okay, I think Giannis is still really good. I think he's going to be really good for the next 3 years. But after that, all bets are off. I think Brook Lopez has shown some massive regression. I also think Chris Middleton has shown some massive regression. I also think Damian Lillard has shown some massive regression. The most important player for this team is clearly Giannis, and it will remain Giannis for the next 3 to 4 years until they get someone better, which is like good luck. Good luck. This is like replacing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or something like that. But I will say this. The biggest question I have is how much of Damian Lillard's regression is real? Because I don't have that question about Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez. I'm not waiting on anything for those guys. Damian Lillard last year, the allegation was that he was going through a divorce. It's not even an allegation. This is purely confirmed by him. He was going through a divorce, and because he was waiting on a trade from Portland, he didn't want to work out to risk injury. And so he basically came out of shape a little bit into the season last year, and then he was kind of playing catch up all year, trying to learn a new offense. There was a different coach, then a different coach, and then learning new teams. Giannis is a really good defender, even at this stage. Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez are going to have to be really, really good defenders if they're going to compensate for Damian Lillard consistently, because this guy is a pylon defensively, and some of his lowlights defensively were just embarrassing to watch. So their most important guy is Giannis. Their most important question, their biggest question, is clearly Damian Lillard. Can Damian Lillard capture lightning in a bottle? Can he be like something close to what he was with the Portland Trailblazers? His game was never fully predicated on, quickness and burst and being a downhill athlete. A lot of what he provides is just spacing. And honestly, Damian Lillard is not the type of all around player where he can step off completely offensively and dip his production and still be a max player. He really is hanging on by a margin, and he's already an undersized guy, and we've seen many of these guys go. Unfortunately, we always think it's the first time it's ever going to happen, and then it just happens for the 50th time. We've seen a lot of players better than Damian Lillard fall off around this age. So I really hope, given all the Bucks gave for him, given how much money they still owe to him, that that is not the case, because it would be very tragic to watch Giannis pretty much fade into the sunlight with three very aging players on bloated deals. So and there's not a lot of youth around him, to fill that void. Moving on to the top three in the East, we got the New York Knicks. And I'm going to be clear when I say this. I really, really like Dante DiVincenzo and Isaiah Hartenstein, like a lot. Like earlier on the panel today, I asked them a question. Would you trade Dante and Isaiah Hartenstein? So Isaiah makes about 25-ish million, 20, 22, 25. It's in that range. And Dante makes 12 for the next 3 years. So sum total, that's 37. And Cat makes 55. So Cat makes almost, I want to say almost twice, but that's generous, as much as those two players. And I would take those two players over Cat 20 times out of 20. I'm not a big Carlton Towns fan. We also discussed on the panel earlier what was Cat's peak, and people had answers like 2021, 2022, whatever. And I was pretty firm that it was 18-19, which is the year the Raptors won the championship. Now, Karl Anthony Towns is 28 or 29 years old, and his peak, in my opinion, is 5 years ago. He is not a great passer. I don't know where this idea that Cat's a good passer came from. He's not. I've watched a lot of Cat over the last 2 years. He's not a great passer. And if he is a good passer, it's a simple pass, simple read type of situation. He's not a great decision maker in the middle of the court. Randall is a much better decision maker, in my opinion. I know he's high turnover sometimes, but he's just a better player in terms of just getting downhill and generating an offense through him, rim pressure, all that stuff. Cat doesn't have a handle. He's not a secondary creator for you. He's going to be a spacer for you. And in that sense, I like what they're going to do with him, right? He's going to run pick and roll, pick and pop with Jalen Brunson, and Mikal Bridges is there to handle most of the secondary creation responsibilities. Karl-Anthony Towns does not need to be the second option for the Knicks. I really don't think he's going to be the second option for the Knicks. I think he's going to be the third option, and in that role, he will thrive. Unfortunately for the Knicks, they're paying him like a first option. So when you pay your third option like a first option, and Mikal Bridges in 2 years is also due for a contract extension, and by the way, you paid your fourth option like a second option, which is OG Anunoby, a lot of questions. And I don't think Mitchell Robinson has much of a market out there, and I don't think they have a bench. So my view on this is you have a lot of injury prone players, a lot of injury prone players. Specifically, I mean, I guess you could say it's only OG, but and Mikel's been a bit of an Iron Man, but again, you start grinding guys into the ground, you start playing guys, 40 minutes a night because you don't have a bench, and you're just, desperately trying to win the East. I think there's a good chance that you get more injuries, and I really don't like that bench. Precious Achiuwa, Deuce McBride inspire no confidence in me. Their most important player, Jalen Brunson. Their biggest question mark, Karl-Anthony Towns. Karl-Anthony Towns used to be a 7.8 box plus minus guy. He had an entire season where he was an all-star, where he was a 6 box plus minus guy. Last year, he was a 2.5 box plus minus guy. I think I remember this off by heart. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong later on. I believe in the playoffs, his production falls down to 0.8 box plus minus. This is not a superstar. You have paid him like one. So if he holds value, if he just holds still and he's just the player that he was last year for the next 3 years, you're kind of fucked, but you're not super fucked. If he just keeps going downhill, I don't pretend to know what motivates players, man. Trust me, I've watched players much, much better than Karl Anthony Towns fade into absolute obscurity at 31. No idea. Okay, some people are just over it at that point. They stop working on their game. Their body betrays them. Whatever inkling of hope, or not hope, but like whatever bit of passion that they really had for their craft is just gone. And you don't become as good as Karl Anthony Towns without really putting in a lot of work. I mean, he's become arguably one of the greatest big man shooters of all time. He really is that good. He is one of the greatest shooters I've ever seen. And as a shooter, he's going to provide excellent value. If all he is a stationary shooter who can sort of defend and rebound, this is not great value. And this is not going to be a movable contract. So I think for the Knicks to get maximum value on this, he has to be like, I don't they don't expect him to come in and be a superstar, but he has to be a star. He has to be an all-star. An all-star for me, he's gonna have to be a 4 box plus minus guy. So optimistic side of this, Rudy Gobert was in his way, kind of screwed up his driving lane, made offense hard for him. He wasn't being used properly. Maybe playing with Jalen Brunson, who's a little bit better passer, is going to be a little bit easier for him than playing with, Anthony Edwards. I think there's a lot of ways that you can look at this, but I think there's one way that I want to prefer to look at this, and which is to say, I don't think, I don't think that he's that good. I just don't think he's worth Dante DiVincenzo and Julius Randle. Hey, another super chat from Gregory. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I am so juiced out on coffee right now, and I'm really looking forward to talking to Vince, because I can stop talking and I can actually talk to someone as opposed to talking nonstop. And I because I have drank a lot of coffee today to just get through all the lives, I feel like I'm racing, and I'm gonna hear this later and I'm gonna be like, oh man, this is the worst live ever. But thank you so much. The support means a lot. Okay, moving on to the second team. Now, this is another team that has gone all in, and this time with Paul George. I just think that their two best players are just so good. Tyrese Maxey, who I love, and Joel Embiid, who I cannot stand, but also am not going to be so biased that I cannot objectively, give him his flowers for being what he is, which is the best player in the Eastern Conference. This is a team that has a chance to be good. I also believe in Nick Nurse relatively. Some of the past, the feelings about him and Fred VanVleet and manipulating the locker room and all that stuff, those things have passed. Nick Nurse is a pretty good coach. And, they have some players off the bench that are reasonable. They still have Kelly Oubre. They have a decent team. Hang on. Take a look at their team and just let me know where we're at. Hang on one second. Let me show you their team, just so you have a clear vision of it. Vince, I'm one more team away. Sixers, Sixers, Sixers. Here we go. Okay. So share screen. So just for anyone who has not been following along with the off season, Joel Embiid. And what's interesting is they're so good. They have two Joel Embiids on their books. This is a mistake by Spot Track. Okay, that's cool. Okay, so I guess that's a mistake. But Joel Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, but they have Caleb Martin from the Miami Heat. He has been signed. He's a pretty decent player. Jared McCain, interesting, right? Rookie contract, a lot of TikTok dances. Oddly enough, I think he's going to be surprisingly good. Yo, what is going on with these contracts? You got Kelly Oubre, right? You got Kenyon Martin Jr., Andre Drummond. Adam Bona is a player that I really believe in. Obviously, you have Kyle Lowry and Reggie Jackson and Eric Gordon, sort of like the veteran bench guards. There's not a lot of depth on this team. I think we could all say that. There's not a ton of depth, right? But there's enough depth and enough top end talent. If you tell me Joel Embiid is going to miss some time and Tyrese Maxey and Paul George have to carry the load, I'm perfectly comfortable with that. I also think Paul George and, to a lesser degree, Joel Embiid suffer from reputational bias. Like people just don't like them. So maybe people don't fairly value them. Paul George is still a really good player. Doesn't get downhill nearly as much as he used to. Not nearly the all league defender he used to be, but he's still a hell of a defender. I'll tell you this much. If Paul George was on the Raptors, Paul George would definitively be the second best player on the Raptors. Wouldn't even be close. So that being said, and his game is not necessarily predicated on speed and burst and quickness. He's a really smart player, really cerebral, really long. So I think they're going to get positive value on the first 2 years of that deal. And by that point, Joel Embiid will be 32 and your window will be pretty closed. And you'll be looking to rebuild around Tyrese Maxey anyway. So it won't really matter. So the next 2 years, I think the Sixers will be a problem. After that, it's anyone's guess. But I do think, weirdly enough, I do think Jared McKean is going to be good. And I think Adem Bona has a chance to be like a rotation big that can maybe replace some of what they lost with Paul Reed. This is the late night vampire shift. Yes, it really is. And to the final team, that is clearly the Boston Celtics. And nothing that should be said about them or can be said about them hasn't already been said about them many times. They are a team that enjoys continuity. They are a team that enjoys spacing. They are a team that enjoys great basketball IQ. They are a team that enjoys great team first guys. They are a team with a coach that has really grown on me in Joe Mazzulla. And honestly, I don't see anyone beating them in the Eastern Conference. Okay, let's. Hey Vince.
Hey, buddy.
How you doing?
How's-
About that?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you?
I am all right. I am very, very caffeinated. I'm more caffeinated than I realized. I made a really strong espresso, and then I poured it out like coffee,
Oh,
drip coffee.
that's a mistake I've made many times, my friend.
Yes, it is a really bad mistake because right now I feel like I'm pacing hard. Anyways,
That's all good,
am I
man. Yeah,
speaking super fast?
no. It's all good. You don't have to apologize. I was listening just like I would be on YouTube, so
Cool.
it's all good. No, don't worry about it whatsoever. I was like I followed along with a bunch of your takes of the teams. It was, I mean, I think you made pretty cogent points about most of them. I think I'd like to push back on New York for a little bit. I think
Okay.
Cat's going to be very nice on that team. I've been a not Cat hater, but that's a little strong. But like I've never quite thought that like just like you, I've never quite thought he was worth the contract that he had. But like you said, as a third guy, where Brunson's going to be controlling everything, and obviously everything for every team depends on the health of the stars. And if Brunson goes down for any significant amount of time, or Cat goes down or whatever, then yeah, their aspirations look a lot dimmer. But yeah, no, I think Cat's going to be very nice, and I think they were probably looking at the landscape of the East and saying we're either going through one of or both of Boston and Philly, right?
Okay.
And possibly Milwaukee in there. But you got to think that Boston and Philly have on paper the best two teams, and both of those teams have elite big guys that can space the court and do stuff on the inside as well. And so yeah, to unjam the paint, like you have Mitchell Robinson in there, even if you have Hartenstein in there. Embiid can just camp out in the paint to some degree. Okay. You know what I mean? Now you got to respect Cat can go off from the outside, and I think that while you sort of broke down the difference between you said Hartenstein plus DiVincenzo is greater than the sum of the parts of Cat alone. Right. But like I think if the Knicks are squinting just a little bit, they're just like, well, we just essentially just put those two players together, and you have the shooting of.
But you really didn't, and that's the difference here. Let me prove it to you. Okay, so 3-point attempts per 100 possessions. Karl-Anthony Towns is taking 8 per 100 possessions. You want to venture a guess how many Dante DiVincenzo was hitting?
Oh yeah, was it 10, 11?
Nope. Keep going up.
More? 12? 13? How many threes did he take a game?
More.
Fucking A. 14?
More.
15 threes a game?
Yes.
Come on.
Dante
Seriously?
DiVincenzo per 100 possessions took 15 3-point attempts. Carlton Towns is
per
literally
one.
half
Okay, so
per
per
100 possessions.
100. Okay. I
Okay,
was like,
but
what?
Cat,
That's crazy.
bro, but Cat's at 8.
Okay.
So he's double, and the
Right.
percentage is the same. They're about 40%
Right.
each. Okay. I also think that it's worth noting. Look at his. Okay. You must not do that with your mic, Vince. Whatever the hell you just did, that was
Shit.
crazy.
You know what? I'm on a wired headset mic, so it might be rubbing against my thing as I'm walking. Is it still doing it?
Yes.
Okay. Here. Let me give me a second. I'm gonna put my AirPods in. Give me one second.
Okay. While we wait for Vince to solve the worst audio in the history of audio.
Sorry, dude.
Greg is like, Vince fell down the stairs. Yo, bro, I thought you were being chased by a masked murderer. Like, I was like, Vince, are you all right? Do we need to do a wellness check on you? Okay,
no,
so
I'm good. Okay, give me a second.
In terms of boxes minus, again, not the be all end all of all stats, but just a good litmus test for this. Cat in 2018, 2019, at the age of 23, was 6. Then he had up to 7.8. Granted, smaller sample size, 35 games played, not a huge sample size. It's not just, but it's not just boxes minus. It's value replacement that's lining up with that. It's his 3-point attempt rate. That was the highest rated 3-point attempt rate season. It's his true shooting percentage. It is also his total rebound percentage was higher than, like, he was a better rebounder for the first 5 years than he was for the last 4 years. Now you might say, well, what happened the last few years? Rudy Gobert showed up. Well, Rudy Gobert didn't show up in 2020, 2021. Right. The regression was right there. Bro, like, Carlton Towns prior to the pandemic and post-pandemic is just, there's a world of difference as a rebounder. There's a world of difference as a shot blocker. Holy shit. We're talking about a guy who in his rookie season was a 4.3% shot blocker, which is very good. He's down to 0.8. Granted, you could say that's the Rudy effect. But again, that number had already fallen by 2019, 2020. And then we have the win shares per 48 argument, where on a pretty bad team in 17, 18, he was averaging 0.23 win shares per 48 with 14 win shares that year. Last 2 years combined, he has added 9 win shares. This is a player you're paying $60 million to if this doesn't work out. I'm just saying the analytics are telling me 100%. And by the way, the eye test is no better. Okay.
Yeah, but okay. So if you're taking that approach, just swap his value with Jalen Brunson. What they're paying.
Swap.
So like they should be paying Jalen Brunson $60 million a year, and they should be paying him 30, whatever Jalen Brunson's making now.
Do you think that Jalen Brunson is a $60 million player?
I mean, his production last year would point to evidence to that fact. Who knows if he's going to keep doing it? I mean, he played like one of the top 12 best players in the league, and typically 12 best players in the league, top 12 best players in the league make that. I'd rather pay Jalen Brunson. Sorry, he's not making 60 this year. That's the last year of his contract.
Last year. So he's making like
27, 23. Right. So I would
That's a lot of money.
I would pay Jalen Brunson $53 million before paying Pascal 45 all day, every day, twice on Sunday.
Say that again. You would rather pay Jalen Brunson what?
53 a year than whatever
Siakam 45.
Exactly. Whatever Siakam's making. I'm ballparking here. I think he makes around 45 or something.
Okay. Let me paint you the let me paint you the doomsday disaster for the Knicks. Okay. What if all 4 of your big money players, actually, fuck that, all 5 of your big money players get worse?
Right.
Because they all can. You're not telling me. Okay, let me ask you a question. If I told you Jalen Brunson is worse next year than he was last year, are you surprised?
No, he did a lot last year, but like because he had to.
And miles add up. Like, and I know he's a really good player. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think his basketball IQ and his physicality and his skill and his craft, but he's still an undersized guard who's a
Sure.
defensive, not so great defender. And I think that these guys typically peak around 25, 20, 26, 27. That's usually where they peak. He's 28.
Right.
So
It's 28.
there's a
Okay.
chance that he goes flatline for a couple of years and then down. Okay. Even if he flatlines, he's still a top 12 player in the NBA. He's not a top 5 player in the NBA, though.
Sure.
He's not a top 7 player in the NBA. There's still at least 10 guys I definitively put over him, including Donovan Mitchell, including Donovan Mitchell, including Jason Tatum, including Joel Embiid. So there's 3 guys in your conference that are better players, which means 3, and including Giannis Antetokounmpo. You're barely a top 5 player. You're hanging on by a thread, and that thread is either Tyrese Maxey or Tyrese Halliburton taking another step.
Sure.
Okay, so what's Karl-Anthony Towns then? So, if Karl-Anthony Towns continues to dip, and if OG dips because of his injuries and, his lack of progression offensively, and I don't know, if Mikal Bridges does not find his form, again, man, I'm just saying there's a world in which the New York Knicks are like mid, and they have a bloated cap sheet. And Josh Hart is a very physical player, very physical. A lot of his value is being provided by athleticism and motor, both things that are going to go downhill with age. And he's also edging closer to 30, right?
Sure.
So I don't know, man. Like I'm not super bullish on the Knicks' future. I got to tell you that. And I don't think Jalen Brunson is going to be the best player on the championship team ever.
Yeah, I mean, like their strength is in, I want to say numbers, but it's through their starting 5, right? Like I still think that.
But if one of those starting 5 gets injured, you're playing Precious Achiuwa 40 minutes a night.
Yeah. Which to be honest, given the strength of the top 5 guys, I feel like they can endure for a certain period of time. You know what I mean? Like I think throughout the season, they're going to they're going to be shopping around. I think they're going to be like picking from the bargain bin if they can. I don't know if have they hit that second luxury tax line, that second apron. Like I'm not sure what the rules are that coincide with going above that. Right. But I think there's certain stipulations.
They are absolutely right there, I believe, and there are stipulations in terms of not being able to take back more salary than you put out in a trade, not being able to buy out market guys. There's implications for your pick later on down the line. Right. And by the way, Mikal Bridges is coming up for an extension, and he's going to want a lot of money.
I mean, that's where they're going to be. That's where they're going to be kind of squeezed for sure. But like,
well, hey, I mean, you're allowed to sign your guys. You're going to have bird rights, and you're going to be in cap hell. But at that point, you will be in cap hell with OG at 29 years old, Josh Hart at 32 if he doesn't get moved first. I forget right now how old Josh Hart is, but Jalen Brunson and Cat will be on the wrong side of 30.
Right.
So again, and then you will be signing Mikal Bridges, who is also going to be close to the wrong side of 30. I'm offhand. I seem to think Mikal is about 28. So when he expires, he'll be on a deal. Again, there's a way to make this situation way worse. Like way worse.
Right.
Which is not only will you be signed to these guys post 30, you might be signed to these guys post 33. Again, maybe I am overly cautious of declines.
Right.
Maybe. Because Lord knows, I've been signaling Pascal Siakam's decline for the last 18 years.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
I've been like, bro, he's 13. He's peaked. It's over.
His rookie year. Yeah.
He's a rookie. He's an older rookie. We gotta move off this before. No, but I am overly cognizant of certain player types, which is, just I think Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, none of these guys inspire in me like, oh, these guys are gonna be great into their mid-30s.
Sure.
Like there are very few players who ever are.
But right now they're still all in their prime. You can't take that away from them for this season. I think you definitely, I think your concern going into the future is very valid. Mm-hmm. But for this season coming up, would you be that shocked if they made the finals? Like I would.
Finals?
Yeah, like even
shocked out of my mind.
I mean, look, even
no, I would be shocked out of my mind. But I would be shocked.
The model of their team is kind of like Boston's insofar as every position, every starting position, they have a well above average player, right? You look at Drew, you look at Derek White, you look at
Mm-mm.
JB, JT,
Mm-mm.
and
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Porzingis,
No,
right?
they do
Now
not have
they
well above average players at every position because they have Josh Hart, and I don't think he's well above average for his position.
uh,
I'm nitpicking, but they have 4 well above average players, and also what makes the Boston Celtics so good is they can go 7, 8 deep, right?
sure,
They had Sam Hauser. They had not Alec Burks. They had Al Horford off the bench. Like, they
sure,
had 7, 8
sure,
guys, so they could sustain an injury, right?
sure.
This team cannot sustain 1 injury, and with the
Yeah,
way their coach coaches, they're going to sustain many injuries.
yeah. That's true. They're definitely going to need to lean on like Precious. Actually, might be a fucking pivotal player for them this year. It's
That is
crazy.
a scary, scary situation. Also, Gregory on a generational run of his own with the super chats. He says, "Coffee for you and Vince." So, okay, so next time we meet, we gotta have $20 coffee.
100%. We're
Maybe,
gonna
maybe we can have Jimmy Butler coffee.
we'll do
That
it. We'll do it at the Raptor game. We'll do
great.
it at the possibly once again humbling Raptors San Antonio game,
You want to see Wemby again, eh?
dude. I
Are you
mean,
are you going to the Vince Carter thing on November 2nd? Or are you selling those tickets?
oh shit! You know what, man? I have a fucking gig that night that I'm gonna try my best to get out of because I didn't know that it was that. Fuck! I didn't realize that was the day.
It's Sacramento. And
Oh,
previously I was upset that they were going to do it against Sacramento, but now I found out why they were doing it against Sacramento.
why? Because he played with
Well,
them,
no. That's hilarious. Of all, if all, then they would have done it against the Nets. No,
right?
I think it's because they wanted to do it before the Nets. And if I remember correctly,
Ah,
their schedule. So the obvious team to do it against would be okay. Fill in the blanks. What's the most obvious team to retire his jersey against?
well, Brooklyn, New York, New Jersey.
I think the most obvious team would have been Philly.
Why is that?
Kyle Lowry,
Oh yeah. Yeah,
and also Vince's series, right?
sure.
So what's interesting though is they fucking could have done it on October 25th against Philly. They could have
Right,
literally done it on the second night.
right,
And that's what pissed me off the most. But because Kyle Lowry is already the draw for that night, and they already know that people are going to pay to watch Kyle Lowry, perhaps in his last game, they can already
right.
build because of Joel Embiid, conference rival, early in the
Sure.
season, etc. I think that they put it to Sacramento so they can get the most gate.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Unfortunately,
probably.
I think it was a purely money decision, and I hate it. I really wish it was October 25th, though, for real.
Damn. Fuck. I might not be able to get out of that gig. That
Gig's
sucks.
a gig.
Yeah. It's not a money gig. It's a smaller thing. It's just a little trio thing. I actually probably could get out of it if I
Need a
tried.
doctor's note?
I
Should we commit this to public record? We should not. No.
will say if I was getting paid in the thousands for that night, there's no chance I would. But I'm in the hundreds, so I don't know. Uh, we'll see. Vince, I'm still kind of bitter. He definitely
Dude,
left a
it's
sour taste in my mouth the way he left, but I
really
definitely am. But listen, I was definitely on the retire his jersey trade for sure, right? But I definitely was still among those who the what ifs. Like, come on, you and T Mac on the same team. Could you
okay, but
just not just
he
given
didn't
that a
choose for
try?
T-Mac to leave. T-Mac chose for T-Mac to
I
leave.
know, no, that's both of them. It's on both of them for sure. But like, if he tried hard enough,
Mhm.
he who knows?
So Maximilian, 77, just created a Vince Carter documentary. Okay, it's
Okay.
so good. It's 3 hours long.
Whoa.
I was told I might be a part of it, but I don't think I am. I don't think I made the cut. But nevertheless,
Okay.
nevertheless, it is awesome. And I'm gonna see if I can pull a clip of it to show people because I think this clip will blow people's minds.
Bro, can you show it at your fucking festival?
Oh, that would be amazing, but a 3 hour
That would be
film would just never work. And also we've never ever screened anything that's been available online. So that's probably not gonna happen. All right, hang on. I'm gonna have to pull this off my phone, like super ghetto fabulous. But hold on one
Yeah.
second. I'm gonna pull this off my phone and just listen to this and tell me if you recognize the voice in this clip. Oh shit.
Brings him. I think he loves the game. I think he loves what the game brings him. I think he only likes the game, and that's the major concern I have with Vince Carter is the fact that
Whoa.
he's a gym rat.
I mean, it's Jack Armstrong.
The game. I don't think he has great passion for the game.
Question my love for the game is the one that pissed me off more than anything.
I don't think he loves the game. I think he loves what the game.
Jack
That's-
Armstrong.
I didn't know that he
Jackie
said
Armstrong.
that.
Holy shit, bro. So I want apologies from the media. I want apologies because they all got blood on their hands. Dave Feshik, Jack Armstrong, basically anyone but Chuck Swirsky. Chuck Swirsky, forever my goat. I'll love Chuck Swirsky forever and ever. That dude has like, I take a bullet for Chuck Swirsky, but that is not
that
how
guy
I
is
feel about.
that guy is the reason that every single time, like, I cannot pass by the onions aisle in a grocery store without saying onions. Like, I can't. It's impossible. I have to say onions like Jack Armstrong, or like Chuck.
Yeah, I think that the way the media did Vince has it's left such a sour taste in my mouth. And I was thinking how much they tried to do that to Scotty the last 2 years. And Grange's tweet today about how Scotty's so much more comfortable dealing with the media. And I was like, man, these people really, really fancy themselves as super important people, right? Do they ever just
He
stop
could give
and
a
realize
fuck about them. He
that's
could give a
exact-
shit about
he
them.
really doesn't fucking care, bro? He had a 30-minute engagement with the media, and he literally dipped in 12 minutes. He was out. They were
funny.
sitting there for 18 minutes, and they were
funny.
given a coffee break. It's almost like Scotty did him a favor, be like, "Hey, I know y'all want some coffee and donuts. Go get some fucking coffee and donuts."
Sure,
He
sure.
didn't fuck with that, and it's like partially, I don't even blame him. But the funny thing is, their entire job is redundant. It's so redundant. Like, dude, the minute players got microphones and already had bigger platforms than the platforms that are covering them,
Yeah,
this entire thing is antiquated.
I
It
know.
makes no sense.
yeah.
Like,
I know.
imagine you were like the head of Forbes and I approached you to do an interview with you. You'd be like, "Are you fucking stupid? Like, well, why would I even waste my fucking time? You're gonna reach 5,000 people. I'm gonna reach 5 million people. Why am
Right.
I wasting my time with you?"
Right.
And that's the
Right.
thing. If Doug Smith wants to write an article about Scotty Barnes, cool. Write that article. It's going to be retweeted like 85 to 185 times. It's going to be hated on by some ex NBA player, whatever. If Scotty Barnes wants to write a fucking article in the Players Tribune about Doug Smith, he
Oh my god.
will
Yeah.
have 1,000 times more people read that article. And if he wants to share that on social with his 600,000 plus subscribers, and honestly, it's not even like Scotty's the biggest deal. Like, there are players who have 10 times the platform he has. So players, once this player empowerment era takes off, it's good. Now, the subject of this video, of course, was Toronto is almost ready to run the East again. And I do want to take a second to just paint my case for that, because
Sure.
I think that the top 4 teams in the East, specifically the Knicks, the Celtics, the Sixers, and the Bucks, have compromised a considerable amount of their future in order to give themselves a window into the present. And I believe that this Toronto Raptor team is sneaky ahead of schedule. Specifically, I think Emmanuel Quickly, again, if I had told you in 2018, if I had told you, Vince, the guy who watches the Raptors every single day, if I told you Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam will one day be all-stars, I think you might have considered me crazy. In 2018, consider where we were in 2018. Pascal was still a fucking run jump athlete. Fred VanVleet was still a chucker, undersized guy.
Sure.
If I told you those guys would be all-stars, but why did they become all-stars? Opportunity times hard work, right? Scotty and Emmanuel Quickly are super hard workers.
Sure.
RJ's been in the gym. He's been in the lab. He's a hard worker too.
Sure.
Are we going to really pretend that these guys that we're saying don't have a chance don't have more innate talent than those guys? So I think that there is a really viable path forward in which Scotty, RJ, this BBQ era, add in one variable. They literally need one guy to work out. Grady, Jacoby, Mobo, who is now wearing number 2 in honor of Kawhi Leonard or in honor of himself. I don't know, but he's wearing number 2. Jamal Shed, literally any one of these guys. Yuri Shamshay. Like, they need one of these guys to join them in a core 4. If that works out and these guys are where I think they're going to be, this could be good. This could be really good. Add into the fact that among the teams at the very bottom, which include teams like the Chicago Bulls with Matas Buzelis, who I really like a lot, teams like Atlanta Hawks with Trae Young, teams like the Chicago Bulls with Josh Giddey. I like Scotty better than any player on any of those teams.
100%.
Literally any of them. So all of this projects to me, in addition to the fact that the Raptors have the most cap flexibility and several picks coming up, 5 picks in the next 2 drafts for a front office that has notoriously been above average at picking. If they do end up tanking this year, the future is very solidified because I really like the top of this draft. But even if they don't tank this year, I still think the future is pretty solidified. And
I mean, I think it is. I think that they don't even have to really tank and still get somebody of extreme quality in this year's draft coming up.
okay,
Even if it, like, let's whatever, they're not going to get what's his name, white guy to
Flag.
Duke, Cooper Flag. They're not going to get him.
White guy to Duke.
Yeah. Sorry,
Well,
Christian
I mean,
Laettner.
they're not going to get Cooper Flag for a lot of reasons, and one of them,
Yeah.
ironically, is that he's a white American star
Sure.
player. That's just
Exactly.
not happening. You're not
They're
wasting
not.
that on Toronto, bro. Like,
No.
there's an Indiana, there's a okay, money on the line. No money on the line, but really, where do you think Cooper Flag plays next year?
I think he plays in
if
either Washington or Brooklyn.
Washington would break my heart, bro. If you force Cooper Flag to get coffee every morning for Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole, you will ruin that man's career.
I mean, I think they're looking at. I don't think they're looking at either. I think it's going to be him, Bilal. I think those are the 2 guys that they're going to be building around. But you know, if he goes to Washington, I think both Jordan Poole. I think both Jordan Poole and Kuzma are they're looking for trades for both of them, regardless of what happens. But they're not going to be part of the Cooper Flag era. I think it's going to be Cooper and Bilal if they do go there. And fuck, if he goes to Brooklyn, woof.
Okay.
Jesus Christ.
Apart from the Raptors, what's a fun team that you would want Cooper Flag to play for? Like, that you would enjoy watching him play for? And it's got to be a pretty bad team.
San Antonio.
Me too.
San Antonio or maybe Utah. Like, I don't know.
Utah.
Yeah, him and Lowry together. I feel like that would be a pretty fun combo. It's a little white. It's a little too white.
It's
going on over there.
It's too white.
Yeah.
It's way too white, bro. It's way too white.
Listen, what I was getting at with the whole point from the beginning, though, is that, like, even if they get his teammate next year, Kaman Maluak, right? Like, who knows what he's going to do, and like the projection
When we say
of big
they, you mean the Raptors?
Raptors, yeah, right.
Ooh.
I think they could get him with the 7th, 8th pick, something like that. I'm not sure how far.
Dude, I think number 2 is wide open for Kaman, for potentially for Ace Bailey, for Dylan Harper, for French Boy. Like, literally, there's so many guys.
I mean, for me personally, if they could get Ace Bailey, I'd be like, whoa, now let's fucking giddy up. Like, I mean, the Ace Bailey looks like a bit of a chucker for sure, but if you put him in an NBA setting and his head's right, and you partner him with Scotty.
Have you ever seen a player? Have you ever seen a youth player become successful when one of the qualifiers for them being successful is if his head gets right? I've never seen it in my life.
No, I just mean like, for a lot of these players, and I think for Ace Bailey. Actually, I don't know what college. Do you know what college he's going to?
Ace?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
I think he's going to be teammates with Dylan Harper, actually, in Tennessee. Is that right?
No,
Can't
Rutgers.
Rutgers.
Ace Bailey,
Yeah,
Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper going to Rutgers. My bad.
Right,
I knew that.
So you'll be able to tell right there Like actually, the fact that he signed off on that gives me sort of positive vibes towards him, because he knows that he's not gonna, like, he didn't choose a place where he's gonna be the be all and end all of the team, right?
Okay.
He knows that there's already a high caliber player playing alongside him,
Mhm.
which I kind of like,
Okay.
and if he develops a bit more of a cerebral nature to his game, I feel like he could be better than Cooper Flag, right? Just with the kind of athleticism that he has, the kind of scoring pop that he has,
Okay.
right? And you put him with Scotty, oh God, that would be fucking ridiculous, right? But again, I still don't even see, he's another American-born superstar that they're probably going to want, they'll probably, I don't know, boost Chicago in the lottery or something like that. Here you go. Here's your next Jordan, or closest iteration to that anyway.
Uh, I think there's quite a few young players in this draft that I could really get behind. I think all the way up to the second round, there are guys that I'm looking at this and I'm like, I could really sell myself on this. In the end, though, like obviously drafting top 5 would be a dream come true, but
Yeah,
also finishing bottom 5 does not guarantee you a top 5 pick. So,
sure,
you
sure.
know, yeah. I mean, I
Where
think you just let the lottery gods fall where they are. And, someone
That's
had
it.
asked earlier, what do I think about Jakob Poeltl saying we're not going to win 65 games, we're not going to go out and win every game. I think some of what Jakob has said has been misconstrued and taken really out of context by a lot of people who are just maybe not the greatest at reading words. So let me just say what he's saying. He's saying that we're not going to win at the expense of development. We're
Sure.
not going to go out and play Bruce Brown 40 minutes because he's marginally a better player than Grady Dick. We're not
Right.
going to do that. And that I fully understand. My view on this is I don't even think, like, I really don't even think that just based on how this team operated last year, how they played Bruce, played Kelly, it's not like they held guys out. The only guy who they held out is a guy, Chris Boucher, who didn't really fit their system.
Right.
That's the only guy. That's the only guy that I can realistically say, okay, that guy was too good to be getting DNP CDs and he didn't play. He just didn't fit the
Right.
system. But it's not
Right.
like they sat Kelly Olynyk when he was perfectly healthy or tried to sit. They were trying to win. And
Right.
and I just think at this point, you know, the Raptors have shown themselves to be competent, like a 33 win team last year, 32, 33 win team with Emmanuel Quickly, Scotty Barnes, and RJ Barrett and Jakob Poeltl. Like that team, I think they won 3 straight, if I'm not mistaken, right? And they were
Yeah.
cooking.
Yeah.
They were cooking like
They
a
got
little
their
bit,
pizza party.
and like the first game with Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett. Do you remember that game? The very first one, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was a blowout win of epic proportions against Miami.
They did. They did. Yeah. They kicked their
And
asses.
I remember like literally starting the game that happened with like the Ric Flair woo. Like I will always remember that, the joy that I felt that we just had this incredible result, and it was just so fun to watch. I
Right.
just think like this trio has just gotten to know each other so well, and I think their chemistry last year was like oil and water. Specifically as it pertains to Scotty and IQ. I just thought their
Right.
chemistry sucked last year.
Right. Right.
And the minute Scotty got hurt, I started seeing him communicating more with IQ on the bench. And I saw him like between timeouts, picking his brain, talking at length. Like literally, you would see them talking. I went to a game, you would see them talking, and you would look over, start focusing on the game, and you would look back like 6 minutes later, they're still talking. And I
Sure.
was like, okay, this is interesting. Like they're actually connecting with each other now. So I think that when your two best players can communicate that well, it was like what happened with Kyle and DeMar.
Right. Yeah. The only thing
It's
is
like
that
that
Kyle.
moment in Heat. You're not so different, you and I.
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
That
Sure.
beautiful moment. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what they had.
I think the only difference is that Kyle and DeMar had, I think, a better supporting cast overall, if I'm not mistaken. Like once they traded Rudy Gay, then they had, who they get? They got Chuck Hayes, they got Gravis Vasquez, they got Patterson,
Pat
and
Patterson,
one other guy. Who who else was in there? Was one other
Chuck
guy in that trade.
Hayes. Hold on. Yeah. Hold on 1 second. Sleepy Me is gonna get this because that trade is hold on. I'm not looking at the chat. I know y'all are gonna say it. I'm not even looking. You got
Yeah.
Chuck Hayes, John Salmons.
John Salmons, that's right.
Yep.
So like those guys were at the like, no, they're not world beaters, but they were quality role players. And we're just not. I think the approach that the Raps took this year with like, okay, here's a solid top four, and
Right.
now here's a bunch of young guys, sink or swim. Grady, prove yourself this
Right.
year. I just listened to a No Ceilings podcast. I don't know if you know those guys,
Mhm.
but the No Ceilings podcast, they it wasn't a ranking. It was just them. It was just an open discussion about young guys who are going to be up for extensions
Mhm.
somewhat soon, that they're interested in. And they
Okay.
went through every fucking, like, obviously not the young stars. They didn't talk about Scotty and Franz and Paolo and those guys. They talked about the lesser known ones, Kobe Buffkins. They
Mhm.
mentioned Kobe Buffkin. They mentioned Jed Howard. They had an honorable mentions category that Grady Dick did not even make. And I was just like, whew, has the media already given up on this guy? Like he's got some shit to prove this year, right? And so like these guys that they just drafted, here's Kelly Olynyk for a few minutes here and there.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's synchro. I think they're taking the right approach. I think they're doing the right thing insofar as like, let's see where let's say two guys, Scotty and
Mhm.
IQ, with the assistance of Barrett and Pirtle. Let's see where they can take us, right? Whatever the average win total is for the worst team in the league. Let's see how many more wins than that those four guys can get us. You know what I mean? If the average win total for the worst team in the league is what, 20, 22 wins,
Mhm.
let's see if they can get to 10 games above that, right? With just these four guys, right? And then that'll give them a good sense of where they stand and what they need to do. And if they come into some luck in the
Mhm.
lottery, or they not even come into some luck in the lottery, if they come into some luck with a guy who lands in their lap, who fits on the team, like Malawak or like any of these guys, Nolan
Right.
Traore, like these guys all look fantastic.
But all these players look fantastic. We've probably exhausted this conversation way too many times
For
for us
sure,
to have
for
it
sure.
again. But I think all of these guys look fantastic as prospects. I think it's important sometimes to realize what you really have, right? Look, it wasn't obvious when Kyle and DeMar went on their very epic run with We the North that they were franchise cornerstones,
Sure,
right? Didn't make sense. I
totally.
mean, the core that really they were building around, really, if you think about it, was Jonas Valanciunas, Terrence Ross, DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry. That was the core.
Right.
You know, eventually T. Ross got swapped out. Gravis Vasquez got swapped out for Norman Powell. T. Ross got swapped out for Serge Ibaka. So pieces shuffled in and out, which is something you can do even right now. You can
Sure,
potentially, if Grady or Jacoby don't work out, you can swap them for something else down the line.
sure.
Bruce Brown, you can swap for something. Kelly, maybe you can swap for something. Jakob, you can swap. So these are all the pieces. This is the formula. This has been done before.
Totally,
But
totally.
if you want to compare, now here's the big question. On the one hand, you have the core four of JV, DeMar, Kyle, and Terrence Ross.
Right.
On the other side, you have the core four of IQ, RJ, Scotty, and Jakob. On the one side, you have 3 lottery picks. Scotty, top 4 pick. RJ, former number 1 player, lottery pick. Top 3 pick. Jakob, lottery pick. And then also, you have this Emmanuel Quickly, who, if the draft were to happen again, COVID, all that stuff, he's probably a lottery pick, probably a later lottery pick, but he's a lottery pick. He's a lottery talent. So again, and these guys are not that far off in age from where those guys were then. Kyle,
No, for sure.
DeMar, whatever. Kyle was actually the oldest of all of these players that we're talking about. Kyle was on the same age around as Jakob at the time,
Right.
right? But DeMar was like 24, I want to say 24, 23, 24, around there.
He was young.
Yeah, but he wasn't that young. He wasn't that young.
Yeah, young as in he hadn't entered his prime yet.
I actually want to look up that roster just to give people an idea of the team that eventually ended up winning 48 wins and to 47 wins, and just to let you know just how fucking improbable and damn near impossible it was at the time to convince people that there was a team, worth building, there. Like people just did not see it, and sometimes seeing is believing, and sometimes you just got to believe something before it happens.
Of course. I mean,
Let me see here.
let's also acknowledge the fact that without the Kawhi trade, it never culminates in a championship, right? Like that's I think we can part of the reason that we can celebrate that team so much is because it did culminate into a championship finally.
I would
but
still appreciate it even if it didn't culminate in a championship. Am I in the
100%.
minority on that?
No. The We the North era, that was glory days. That was like for me as a season ticket holder that got to pick and choose all these awesome games to go to. Like I saw some pretty fucking signature wins, right? Like against those teams. So those are that team. Like, I can never take anything away from that. But what puts the cherry on the top of that team for me is the fact that they finally like made it to the mountaintop. Right. And DeMar, unfortunately, he had to die for our sins.
Okay,
in order to get there.
Let me show you who the playoff roster was. These are the 13 players that played for the Raptors in the playoffs, and sorted from order of least important to most important. We'll sort them by boxes minus and just go straight. Okay, so Landry Fields doesn't count. Played 26 minutes. Fuck that. Small sample size. But Landry Fields, Patrick Patterson, Gravis Vasquez. Gravis Vasquez really underrated playoff performance against the Nets. He was incredible.
He was nice.
DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry, Amir Johnson, Jonas Valanciunas.
Amir.
Yes, Amir. JV, right? Had a negative boxes minus. Chuck Hayes, John Salmons, Tyler Hansbrough, Terrence Ross, Steve Novak, Nando De Colo, who played 4 minutes and became one of the greatest players in European basketball history. Okay, so it's worth saying, I don't necessarily think this roster is better than our current roster. I would not swap places with this current roster. Let me put it this way. If I could build a machine right now and say I can build a machine with no idea what this team would become, just I'm looking at this team, it's 6-12. I'm like, shit, I don't know. I just traded Rudy Gay. Should I trade Kyle Lowry? Should I not? This team is 6-12. The Raptors right now are 0-0. Which of these two teams do I believe in more going forward based on the evidence I have at that moment? I'll take Scotty over Kyle Lowry. I'll take IQ over. I mean, I don't want to say I'll take IQ over DeMar, but it's close between those two. And I'm a big DeMar fan. Could you get at least on board with RJ over DeMar? Given the fact that RJ has already had multiple seasons shooting 40% from three, and neither one of them can defend worth a lick.
RJ over DeMar? I mean,
at that time, hold up, at that time.
Right.
And let me, you know what? Actually, let me make this even easier. Hang on. And this is.
Oh no, I'll tell you right now. At the time, I did not have any faith in DeMar.
I thought I was the only person who had any faith in DeMar at that time. I loved DeMar DeRozan, but that was the thing. I was very realistic about the fact that he wasn't on the same tier as. Hang on. So this is obviously like DeMar has become a very different player, but let me just sort for the season, and I'm gonna just compare I'm gonna see RJ's last season versus DeMar's last season prior to We the North. Okay, let's just see how those two players compare. So that would be DeMar DeRozan 12-13 and RJ Barrett 23-24. Okay, let's see. Get results. They're relatively the same age. And let's see. RJ's better across the board, bro.
Right.
Literally better across the board. Let's see. RJ Barrett scores more points per 100 possessions, more rebounds, more assists, slightly fewer steals, more blocks, is more turnovers, in fairness. DeMar's the better free throw shooter, but RJ's the considerably better 3-point shooter. He's the more efficient 2-point shooter. He's got a higher effective field goal percentage.
Right.
He's got a higher box plus minus. He has a higher value of a replacement. They both played on really bad teams. DeMar played all 82 games, whatever. RJ's 6 percentage points better. The gap between RJ Barrett and DeMar DeRozan is bigger than the gap between DeMar DeRozan and Kawhi Leonard the year after Kawhi left in terms of true shooting percentage, just to give you an idea of that. This is a huge gap. So
Right.
I don't think it's a stretch right now, and they're both 23 years old here. I don't think it's a stretch to say RJ Barrett's a better player than DeMar DeRozan at the same age. I don't.
Yeah. No, I can get on board with that.
Okay.
Now that you break down the numbers so succinctly.
So Scotty clearly over, and okay, and I'll prove it to you with the Scotty versus Kyle Lowry thing too, because I think that is an even clearer evidence. That's an even clearer advantage for Scotty. But let's see it. And Scotty's the younger player and the bigger player and the more athletic player and all that shit. But let's compare Kyle Lowry 12-13 versus Scotty Barnes last year. Let's just see what that looks like. Okay. Barnes. Compare. Okay. Show criteria. Seasons for each. So again, Kyle was an analytics darling, even in 12-13, but Kyle was 26. So it is worth noting that I'm comparing a 26-year-old to a 22-year-old. And I have a feeling that Scotty's going to come out on top.
I'd say so.
And he does. Almost at everything. Scotty's a better player. Like a much better player. I think people need to look at the stats that I'm showing here. Per 100 possessions, Scotty Barnes scores more blocks, more shots, has fewer steals, fewer assists, way more rebounds. Shot almost the same percentage from free throw line, which is pretty incredible. 3-point percentage is not that far off. 3-point attempt rate is not that far off. Can you believe that Scotty Barnes last year was averaging 6.8 per 100 possessions, 3-point attempts, and Kyle at the, granted, much further along in his career. I'll tell you right now, Scotty Barnes at 26 is going to be averaging way more threes attempted per game than Kyle Lowry. You can say the league is in a different place, whatever, but the 3-point revolution was already on at that point. So value of replacement, Scotty clears. Boss minus, Scotty clears. Usage, Scotty clears. That's surprising. Kyle's a point guard. Win shares, okay. Kyle has a slight advantage. PER, Scotty clears. True shooting percentage, Scotty clears. Okay, so Scotty's a much better player, 4 years younger. Okay, so the two core pieces from that fucking, that sparked We the North, RJ and Scotty are better than them.
Wow.
I think that should shock some people.
I'm shocked right now. Here, I'm calling
Amazing.
from a different account. Can you see that?
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Hey,
Great.
can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. So I mean, the core two pieces, right, are better now and younger on average. Scotty and RJ are younger. And I could argue that RJ's not even the second best player in this equation. Emmanuel Quickley's better than him.
No, he is.
So therein lies the thing. So Emmanuel Quickley, whoever the fuck you think the third guy on the Raptors We the North team was, whoever you think that guy is, I can make a very realistic argument that RJ is better than that guy too. Obviously. So the core three, and especially if you start scaling it down to core four, and then you start to look at all this stuff around those players. Okay. So who were those players? The Landry Fields. Okay. What's the potential of a Landry Fields? I'm sorry. He wasn't some spring chicken when he was with the Raptors, right? You start looking and you start seeing like a lot of young players on this team. I could really sell myself on this team just being substantially better than the team that made history with We the North.
Well, here's where I'll play devil's advocate.
Okay.
There's something to be said about the strength of the league being better overall right now.
Yes,
So,
that is fair.
you know, we weren't dealing with a
And the
like
East is way stronger.
it's funny, when you were outlining the Orlando Magic, I was like forgetting about guys that they had. And you're just like they've just had so many more bites at the apple than the Raptors have as of yet. So no fucking
Right.
wonder. Even though like it makes me want to tear my hair out that everybody everybody who talks about the league seems to think that Paolo is head and shoulders better than Scotty. Like, and it's just not even a doubt in their minds. Like, although
I think
Zach
Lowe said it
Lowe
was 65-35.
what? Oh yeah, do you think it's 65? Who you took a poll?
No, Zach Lowe said if he ran a poll across league executives that he feels that the poll would be 65-35 in favor of Paolo.
Right.
So he didn't say it was going to be a clean sweep. Also,
Right.
Brad Morris, thank you for the super chat. This is our first non-Gregory super chat, which I appreciate. But I
Way to
also
go, Greg.
really, really appreciate all these Gregory super chats, which is really, really cool. And the most super chats we've received in months. So thank you so much. That is a queuing of it is October, it is Raptors time, and you know, that's some very positive motivation to
That's
be
right.
doing my how many hours have I been streaming today? 4 hours, 3 hours. This is 9 hours. I'm going on 9 hours of streaming. So
Wow.
this is the fact that I'm even coherent right now is awesome. But yeah.
You're a lifer, Robbie. You're in
Yes.
this for the long haul.
It's the stream grind. It's the stream grind. We gotta make a case for Scotty Barnes being better than Kyle Lowry at 2 o'clock in the morning to piss off some Raptor fans. But no, man, I really believe it, and I think the upside. I mean, I just talk straight production. I'm not even talking upside because I think Scotty's trajectory is on a completely different planet than Kyle or DeMar. So
Right.
again, I just there's a part of me that thinks that there was a silver nugget in what Jakob said today, which was basically that when you set the bar low and you meet that as success, right? Like he says, when you exceed that bar, it's good vibes, it's success. I'm paraphrasing, but roughly what he was basically saying is, if you go in saying grades don't count and you get a B, everyone's happy. If you
Right.
go in saying it's A or bust and you get a B, everyone's disappointed. So in order to keep things light and keep the pressure off the young players, to keep flexibility, to not have like a shitstorm of media press, whatever, that we would rather be the team that everyone expects to be terrible, that ends up being surprisingly decent, than the team that everyone expects to be mediocre, that ended up surprising and being really bad.
Mhm.
I get that. But internally, I'm telling you, like everything I've heard around this team is these guys don't expect to be bad.
Right. I believe it.
Like I don't think RJ Barrett is having conversations with his dad right now being like, yeah, we're gonna be in fucking Cancun. Like I think they're all thinking we're gonna make the playoffs. Like we're gonna shock some teams.
I
And
I would make the argument that that of the we'll say the teams nine and below, that the top four starters on the Raps are better than the top four starters on any other team. Right? Of the teams like not in the top 8, we'll say. Right? I think it's pretty
Atlanta, can you get your head around Atlanta having a better starting five?
So Dyson, Trey,
Jalen,
Johnson, and then Onyeka or Clint
yeah,
and DJ. Yeah, maybe.
DJ,
Or who's their 3? Sorry, not
Dyson,
DJ. What's his
DeAndre Hunter.
DeAndre Hunter. Sorry, that's who it was.
So I mean, in theory, you could also argue they have like I think Jalen Johnson and Zachary Risachet and Onyeka Okongwu are an embarrassment of youth upside,
Right.
you know, and Dyson Daniels add to him that's a really good young core, like
Right.
a really good young core. Like
Maybe
I'm
you got me on Atlanta.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know if they're good enough right now, but like, I don't know. I guess that depends a lot on how good Jalen Johnson is because Trey Young is already really good.
Right.
So I don't know. And I mean, again, Brandon Miller and there's not a lot else in Charlotte. I mean,
Brandon Miller, LaMelo.
Miles Bridges, you could say is easily better than Grady Dick or whoever the fuck the Raptors' fifth starter is going to be. You could also make an argument for Miles Bridges over RJ Barrett. Not a great argument, but it is an argument worth having.
Yeah, I'd say they're comparable.
Right. So
Both
you
lefties.
know, it's Lamelo and Brandon Miller versus Scotty and RJ. Scotty and IQ. I think I give the edge for now to Scotty and IQ, but you know, Brandon
Right.
Miller could take a crazy step up. I've been so wrong about him so far.
Right.
I'm open to being wrong about him in the future. So yeah, I mean, yes, overall, I agree with your point. I'm just pushing back to be devil's advocate. I do think the Raptors have the best starting lineup, and I don't necessarily buy this notion that they have this terrible bench.
I think there's just so many, like we just don't know what to expect. Right.
Right. But
Like
Davion Mitchell has been a rotation player for a perennial, like for the last 2 years at least, 40+ win team.
Right.
Right. Again, I went through this in a previous live, so I'm repeating myself a little bit. All these players very recently have played meaningful minutes, except for Ochai Agbaji. All of them have played relatively meaningful minutes on good teams. RJ, Emmanuel Quickley. You could argue Jakob Poeltl has not, but I think we can all agree like he can easily, right? And the Raptors post trading for Jakob Poeltl, I believe we're on a 52 to 53 win pace. So at least for half a season with Fred VanVleet, he definitely did. Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett, again, they played massive roles, closing roles on a successful team. You get Scotty Barnes. He's been, as a rookie, he started and played massive minutes on a 48 win team. And I refuse to believe that Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet were just that good.
Right.
So I don't know, man. I'm telling you, I think this team is better than that We the North team. I think it would just require a push. And I think that push could come through just all the hoopla of year 30. I think just that, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? You know, wouldn't it be cool if we surprised some people? Wouldn't it be cool if, you know, we were actually good for our 30th year?
Right.
Wouldn't it be good to stick it to management? We all like to fucking stick it to our boss once in a while. Boss is coming out and saying we're rebuilding.
Right.
I think if you have some pride in the locker room, I think you might have some people saying, let's go show them. Let's go show them that we're better than people, you know, are giving us credit for, and force their hand to get us some help. I don't know.
Have it be what was that you know, that movie Major League? Did you ever see that?
No, I haven't.
So it's about the Cleveland Indians at the time, and the team owners want them to tank, and it's a band of misfits that get put together. They have the Charlie Sheen plays the closing pitcher, Wild Thing. No, you don't remember that one?
No, but I do remember The Replacements with Keanu Reeves, which I think is
same kind of situation.
It's the same situation, basically the same movie, different sport.
Yeah. Ownership wanted them to tank, but they're prideful bunch of miscreants that get their shit together and start winning. And you know
what's an underrated basketball movie that I'm always surprised people have not heard of? Eddie.
Oh, actually, I'm one of them. I've not heard of it. Eddie?
What?
Yeah. Hold on. Let me look it up just to.
Whoopi Goldberg. She becomes the coach of the New York Knicks. This is an underrated basketball gem, bro. It is good.
Or maybe, I do not know this movie.
Maybe I thought it was good as a kid, and now it's shit because I'll watch it as an adult and be like, what the fuck was I thinking? I have no idea, but I think it's pretty decent. Someone in the chat, please let me know if Eddie is a decent film or if I've lost my fucking mind.
Has some good actors in there. Dennis Rodman, Malik Sealy, John Sally.
Bro, Rick Fox.
Dennis Farina.
Rick Fox. Underrated.
I'm going to have to check that one out.
It's
no Air Bud, okay. I'm sure.
I have not been able to bring myself to watch Air Bud. My favorite. What's your favorite basketball movie of all time? Are you gonna say Hoosiers?
No, because
Love and
it's
Basketball.
I don't know. I'll give a. I recently showed my son. Oh my god, it's late at night, so the Monstars original.
Space Jam.
Yeah, Space Jam. I just watched that with him, and he was like googly eyed. So right now, that's my favorite basketball movie.
Wow. Okay. Really?
I got
Okay.
that. I
I mean,
got
it's-
that
it's-
dad life
it's
going on.
It's
right
it's
now.
decent, but okay. Let me suggest one, and let me see if you've seen them before. Have you seen Above the Rim?
Yes, that's a far better movie. That's for sure. That's a far better film.
Above the Rim is awesome. I like the message of Coach Carter. It's a little cheesy. It's a little over the top, but I like
Right.
it. Overall, it hit me as a kid, so I liked it.
What about White Man Can't Jump?
I'm sorry to say I have not watched it. I've heard of it a million times. It's been on my list. I even own a copy on DVD. I have not watched it.
Dude, it's the perfect movie.
Is it Woody Harrelson?
Yeah, Woody and Wesley Snipes. It's so good.
Oh, sweet.
I mean, Wesley
weirdly
Snipes
enough,
makes
I've
the
seen
movie.
Celtic Pride,
Oh, I've not seen that.
where they, I believe they kidnap a Celtics player for whatever reason. I have seen that, and it was fucking terrible.
Dude, White Man Can't Jump is. I've probably seen that movie 20 times. It's very good.
Semi-Pro is fire too.
Yeah,
Yes.
Semi-Pro.
Semi-Pro is amazing.
It is
I
very good.
love Will Ferrell in that. I weirdly enough have never watched Thunderstruck. I don't think I'm ever going to watch Thunderstruck. I have, however, watched a very cheesy movie, which is Like Mike with Lil Bow Wow. Yes, I have. Yes, I have. And it's not great.
I can't say I'm ever gonna.
But Vince
watch
Carter was in it, which I
Oh,
really
was he?
appreciated. Yeah,
Oh,
Vince
okay.
Carter blocked the shit out of Lil Bow Wow.
it. He
Got Game is also an all-timer.
He got game.
Mila Jovovich, Denzel Washington, Ray Allen, amazing.
Yeah.
Jesus Shuttlesworth, that became a meme forever.
I think if I had to rank them in terms of how good they are as movies, like take into account somewhat entertainment factor and then like cinematic, I would probably go White Man Can't Jump first, then Above the Rim, then He Got Game.
Okay, just a question. Is White Man Can't Jump autobiographical for you?
Yeah, very, very much so. I can't
Okay.
jump for shit.
I can't jump for shit either. Okay. Yeah, I touched Mesh, and then I feel like my friend swore to me that I'd never touched Rim, but I feel like I just grazed Rim once, and I was very happy
same.
about grazing Rim. I was very excited about this. Okay.
Well, part of the reason was because I'm in the best shape of my life now as a 46-year-old than I was ever in my youth. So that was probably
amazing.
part of the problem.
That's a massive triumph of the human spirit.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to talk about you like some sort of recovering, patient or something. It's a remarkable triumph of, getting over all the cannolis you've been eating your whole life. But
it's called having a kid at 43 years old and being afraid you won't be able to keep up with him.
Fear is a powerful thing. Yes, my girlfriend and I have been talking for a while about the concept of being older parents now. Because I mean, like a lot of people, especially the Scotty Barnes thing, this news really sprung us into action. Because I presented to her like news like it happened to a friend of mine. I was just like, guess who got pregnant? And this was before it broke. Like this is
is Scotty a dad?
You don't know this?
No, didn't know.
Okay. Yeah. So
holy shit. Congrats, Scotty.
Close to being, yes. So anyways, so he's 23, right? And that means he's 13 years younger than us. And so we were like, holy shit, like this is absolutely way more normal than what the fuck we're doing. Although we understand that people are having kids later and later in life. But that being said, you start doing the math on this. If you take a year to get pregnant, then suddenly you're 37. Now you're like, okay, we're going to be 50 when we have a 13-year-old. That's if we got pregnant right away. Then we're going to be, you know what I mean? Like you start doing all the math and you're like, well, how old are we going to be when she graduates? And it's funny because my cousin just sent his daughter from Europe to Canada, and their age gap is 36 years. And so now she's 18 and he's 54. And I was just like, this is fucking weird.
Wow.
This is fucking hella weird. So I understand. I completely get it. And again, it's like, you know, there's so many people out there who are like talking about slowing down at 40. And I'm like, bro, you cannot slow down at 40 when you have like a 2-year-old. And it's just not gonna happen. So it's good. Keeps you young longer. I have been watching a ton of great movies on Netflix. A ton. I had a goal. It was about a month and a half ago when I stopped making as many lives because I really wanted to get out of this. I've been watching the same movies on repeat since my mom died. I don't know what it is, but apart from Pen Dance, I cannot bring myself to really watch new shows, new movies. So many great movies and so many new shows have passed by, and I've just been like, nah, I think I'm going to stream The Office again. Nah, I think I'm going to watch Kingdom of Heaven and Man on Fire back to back. And I was listening to the Tony Robbins thing once, and he said, the reason that you won't watch anything new is because you value safety over novelty.
Right.
So you need to change that. You need to give things a chance. So I said, okay. So I went shopping on Netflix and on all platforms because we are very lucky and we have literally every single platform. We have Crave, we have Netflix, we have Amazon, we have everything. So I was like, and my TV, the new TV we got like 7-8 months ago, it streamlines all that shit into one database.
Right.
Which is fucking convenient as hell because now you just put everything on your list. And so I started putting movies on my list. I got to about 130. No, 199. It's 189.
Right.
And then I was like, I put 189, and then I'm like, I'm gonna knock 2 to 3 out every single day. A very valid use of time.
Right.
Last night I watched The Wailing. Have you seen it?
Not seen it, no.
It's a South Korean film about this crazy outbreak of like murders that starts happening in this village, this very serene village in South Korea. Fucking phenomenal. Possibly one of the scariest movies I've ever seen in my life. Then I watched Icarus the previous day. I'd watched Icarus, which is the 2016 documentary that won an Oscar about the Russian doping scandal.
Okay.
Then I watched Talash, which is an Indian film about a mysterious hooker and an officer. Then I tried to watch the Candyman remake. I couldn't bring myself to do it. I watched the most recent Scream because I don't know why. I watched Stillwater with Jason Bourne dude.
Yeah.
Matt Damon.
I
thought this movie was super underrated. The reviews weren't great, but Stillwater really, really got me. Like I was like, damn, this is good. Possibly one of the best movies I've watched this year, His Three Daughters. About these 3 very different women, very new on Netflix, navigating the death of their terminally ill father and wrapping up his sort of final affairs. I thought it was crazy underrated.
I'm not seeing that.
I watched Mean Girls for the first time because my girlfriend told me it was shot in her high school. I was like, all right, cool. I didn't know Mean Girls was shot in Canada. That's cool. Then I watched The Unforgivable. Not very good. The Good Nurse. Not very good. Passengers. Yeah. I Am Mother is a great sci-fi film.
I haven't seen a lot of these. I don't think I've seen any of these ones that you've just rifled off.
None of them, right? And that's the crazy thing. When you really think about it, there's so many great films. Have you seen The Squid and the Whale?
No, I have not.
Great movie. Shiva Baby.
Nope.
It's about this girl who it's a hilarious premise and it's a fantastic movie. And it was almost at Penn Dance, but then it ended up going to TIFF first. So Shiva Baby is about a girl who has told her entire family that she's a babysitter, but in fact is a sugar baby. And her sugar daddy shows up to a Shiva, which is what happens after a funeral in Jewish culture.
Yes.
So it is just hilarious hijinks throughout the entire thing, but it's shot like a horror film, like her horror. about will her secret that she's a sugar baby be revealed in front of her whole family. It's fucking hilarious, and it's
That is
so well
funny.
done.
What's it called? The Squid and the Whale?
No, that's Shiva Baby.
Shiva
Squid,
Baby.
The Squid and the Whale is ironically Jesse Eisenberg as the son of Jeff Daniels, I think, the guy from Dumb and Dumber. Is that Jeff Daniels?
Oh yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And yeah, so he's the son of a man who's an eccentric writer who's navigating a divorce in New York. And it's a super New York story about
nice.
a super bunch of New York people. I watched American Son, which I really didn't like and I thought was a little preachy, but heavy subject.
Did you see Parasite?
Of course I've seen Parasite.
Yeah.
I'm a cinephile. My girlfriend and I watched 2012, which I immediately regretted. I've watched it before. That movie broke the rules because she had never seen 2012. And then she fucking tells me after, oh, I realized 12 minutes into the film that I'd already watched it, but I was too late. I was like, are you kidding me? I watched that fucking shit twice. I finally watched Bird Box, which I thought was
Bird Box. I feel like I've seen that.
Sandra Bullock.
Yes.
Blind. Yeah.
Yes.
May December, somewhat underrated. A film about an actress shadowing a woman who had an affair with her student, and then had a baby with her high school student, went to jail for it. And so like the melding of, these two personalities, these two narcissistic personalities, and how they navigate this very tough thing. Very art house. I have a lot of very art house things, and that's as far back as my Netflix history goes, but there's like hundreds of other movies that I watched. So yeah, so like complete absorption into this. And what's funny is, what I realized is patterns are so weird. When I was 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, I would go to Blockbuster every Friday with my paycheck. $20 of my paycheck would go to Blockbuster. And what I would do is I would get the 4 for $20 deal at the previously owned, because I didn't like to rent. I don't like to rent anything. I don't like to rent my home. I don't like to rent shit. So I'd buy 4 DVDs that appealed to me, and whatever it was, whatever looked right. And, because I'd bought it, I would watch it. So I'd watch a lot of shit films all the way through because I purchased it. And then once a year, Blockbuster would have this completely stupid idea to take back any film for $5 store credit. So I got to keep these films for fucking free. And the ones I liked, I kept. And the ones I didn't like, I just returned them.
That's
for
fantastic.
$5 store credit. And then I bought myself a fucking PS3. Point being, that period of my life, I was watching new films every single week. And I think that it was a very instrumental time in my life, because between 2006 and 2008, I think I grew more as a human being than I grew at any point in my life. And I was just like, man, maybe watching all these new movies, and then, I was also reading a lot of new books at that point. Maybe that is like deeply instrumental in actually cueing change, because you need new ideas to come into your mind. Like the film I just watched yesterday, I was afraid I was going to have nightmares. And I'm not someone who usually has nightmares or is usually afraid of horror films. I've made a few horror films. This movie was fucking terrifying. Truly scary. Are you a fan of horror films?
I usually like them if they have, if it's not the standard like gore factor. Like, I'm not into Saw and stuff like that. I like it if there's a story behind it.
Do you mean gore for gore's sake?
Yeah.
Or do you mean gore of any kind? Because my girlfriend is the same way. She's like, I can't stand gore, but then she'll be totally fine with this particular story, and I'm like, that's very gory. She's like, yeah, but there's a story behind it.
Yeah.
The story here is deep. It's about a police officer who's very cowardly, but then when this infection catches his daughter, but it's also very otherworldly. Have you ever read the book by Stephen King called Needful Things?
No.
It's a really good book, and it was like one of my favorite books growing up. It's about 800 pages long, but it's a really good book, and I actually have the first edition of it. And it's about the devil. He comes to Castle Rock, and he sort of seduces all of the townspeople that he'll solve their biggest problem. It could be something like, I don't know, let's say you're extremely nostalgic about some particular jacket that you had in high school, but you haven't been able to find it. He'll offer you that jacket in order for you to do him a favor, but the favor will be a sin.
You know what? I've seen the movie. I was going to say it seemed familiar.
Is it Ed Harris?
It is. Yeah, Ed Harris. That's right.
It's a great film. It's a pretty decent film. It's a better book, but
Yeah.
yes, the film is awesome. So in a lot of ways, the devil operating on this needful thing element, I think, is very much borrowed in The Wailing as well. But yeah, it's a lot more mysterious and a lot more. It's a lot less heavy-handed. Like I've grown to be deeply appreciative of films that allow you to make mistakes,
Right.
like films that allow you to misjudge yourself, or films that mislead you a little bit, or films that allow you to be a little confused for a bit, so you're like kind of racking your brain a little bit, like what's going on.
Yeah.
Not confusing, but like, like what I really hate is films that'll go like, this is the bad guy that everybody needs to hate and he has no redeemable qualities at all, and this is the good guy and he has no blemishes. Like, that's the worst film ever.
Right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of black and white movies just like that. That's it. I think it's pablum. It's fluff stuff.
But what is created by that is increasingly stupider audiences, right? Because they do these audience tests with these films, and they'll be like asking these audience members, "Were you confused?" But these same audience members have literally had their attention span sapped by
Right.
social media all day, so of course they're
Right.
confused because they fucking got lost. And so now you have to increasingly make edits faster in order to pace. Like, it's such a sad world in which cinema has to adjust because of social media and
I
TikTok.
mean, not all. Like the two Dune movies were very slow paced.
Slow cuts.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Super slow paced, and they were phenomenal. Like I enjoyed them. I think that's similar to the Stephen King novel that you just highlighted. Like people who read the Dune books usually say, "Oh, the book was better," because there's so much left to your own interpretation.
Also, this is a deeply pretentious thing to say. In any walk of life, if you ever want to make 5 enemies immediately, just tell someone that their favorite movie is better as a book, and they will hate you
Better as a
forever.
book. It's true.
It's
true.
amazing. It's honestly instant.
There's more nuance to books. You can it's long form versus quick edits. It's just how it is, right? You can hang out in one area. You can reread something, whereas you can't go back.
Oh, this Kemper Thornberry, Strange Darling was cool and not rushed in that way. So interesting enough, the actor for Strange Darling, Kyle Gallner, was in Dinner in America, which won Best Picture at Pendance in 2021. And Kyle and I have remained somewhat in touch, which is really cool because he is honestly one of the best actors in the world, bar none. Amazing. So when my girlfriend and I went to the theater to watch Strange Darling, I honestly, this is I'm not kidding. My girlfriend thought I'd had a stroke.
Okay.
We were watching the film, and the credits rolled, Strange Darling, and I was just like this.
Sorry, I don't have you on screen right now. Oh, okay.
I'm just staring at the screen.
Yeah.
Speechless, mouth open, not saying anything. She's saying, "Rob, you okay? Rob, you okay?" I'm not saying anything. I'm just like staring forward because I'm zoned out. And at some point I hear her saying something, and I just kind of like brush her off like a fly. I'm just like, like, shut up. I need to fucking pay attention. I need to figure out who fucking made this film.
Right.
It is such a mesmerizing film. The DP, Giovanni Ribisi.
Oh, what?
Yes.
It says he's an actor in the movie.
He's not. He is the director of photography. He did not act in the movie.
It says he plays a guy named Art Pallone.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I did not notice him. He probably disappeared into that freaking character. But
let me see.
Okay. Anyways, the film is fucking fantastic. It is deliberately misleading. It is
incredible. Oh, sorry. He's the voice. Was there a narrator?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, Willa Fitzgerald is frigging fantastic in this film, and yeah, I just think, yeah, and Kyle is just a fantastic an incredible actor.
Nice. Well, I've got a few now fired up. What was it called? This Strange Darling.
Strange Darling is in theaters. I don't know if
Split the
it's still in
Whale.
theaters, but it is yeah. Like honestly, it's been a really long time since a movie did that to me. That sort of stunned effect where
Right.
you have to think about it for like hours and hours after. I think A Separation did that to me. Ashghar Fahadi's film. I think also 4 Months, 3 Weeks, 2 Days obviously did that to me. I think Locke, Tom Hardy, Locke, weirdly
Oh,
enough,
oh
really
man, I
fucking
love
like
Tom
I was just
Hardy.
whoa.
Locke.
Yeah, Locke. One guy, one car, no other actors. I mean, granted, there's a lot of voice actors, but he's just one man show. He one
Wow.
man shows the whole thing, and it's thoroughly engaging the entire time. I was just like, man, this is making something very, very incredible possible.
If anyone can do it, he can. He's a phenomenal actor.
He really is. You know, I've always had this really weird take on The Revenant.
Oh yeah.
What if Tom Hardy and Leonardo DiCaprio had swapped characters?
You think it would be still just as good, eh?
I think it'd be better.
Really?
But I think because Leo was a bigger actor, they had to go the other way.
Yeah.
And it's hard for people to even imagine that. But like Tom is such a physical actor, and Leo is such a talk actor that to force Leo to not talk for an entire movie, I feel like is a disservice.
Right.
Like he's a dialogue actor, like he's great on delivery. And I think Tom is just all emotion, right? And also now I'm thinking like, having watched Dark Knight Rises a few too many times, I really hate the Tom Hardy casting on that.
Right.
Like I absolutely detest it. The idea that you have a 5'10" Bane is just insulting on all levels.
Right.
It's just stupid.
Right. Is he 5'10", Tom Hardy?
5'10", 5'11", 5'9", I don't know, something in that range. He's not tall. He's definitely not tall.
Yeah, Bane is supposed to be like 6'4" or something.
Bane is supposed to be like 7 foot.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Like Bane is supposed to be huge. I'm pretty sure Bane is supposed to be enormous, and he's supposed to be like full of like. I wasn't a big Batman comics guy. I was more like a Batman cartoons guy.
Right.
Like I never really got into the comics. Frankly, I didn't get into any comics. That's a weird factoid. But yeah, like I think
I noticed that you didn't rhyme off any Marvel movies in your shoot.
Okay, this is late enough in the live that I can admit something very embarrassing. I have never watched a Marvel movie other than Iron Man and Iron Man 2. Those are the only ones.
Really?
Okay, Spider-Man, first one. That's it. Those are the three. I have not
Really?
watched any X-Men movies. I have not watched any Avenger movies. I have not watched any Captain America or any of that shit. I haven't watched any of it. I refuse.
Deadpool?
Fuck. I lied. Yes, I have watched Deadpool. I
There you
watched the first one. Okay, so I watched a Marvel movie without realizing that I've entered the Marvel universe because I heard it was just a great Ryan Reynolds performance. Yes, I did watch Deadpool.
He is
Okay.
funny.
So I watched 4 out of what is probably like 100 of them, right? I didn't watch Shang-Chi. Was it Shang-Chi? Shang-Chi? Whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't watch that. I didn't watch any of the Avenger movies, and I'm assuming there's a shit ton of them. I've actually stopped watching Fast and Furious movies. Despite being
I stopped after Fast and Furious 1.
Really?
Yeah.
Man.
I'm
You missed a heartbreaking 1 and 5, but
I'm
I think
not
it was 5 or 6.
I'm not really a car action guy. I'm not into the car action movies for the most part.
What's your favorite movie of all time?
Oof. It's like asking what's your favorite song. It's impossible to pick one.
That is true.
In recent memory, Dune 2 is a
Okay.
fantastic movie.
Okay. It's crazy.
Uh,
I haven't watched Dune or Dune 2.
Nostalgia,
Okay.
I'll go Terminator 2. That as an action movie.
Okay.
Idiot comedy movie. Do you even do those?
Do I do idiot comedy movies? Yes, I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I have watched Superbad. I have watched This Is 40. Are those idiot comedy movies or are
Yeah.
those smart comedy movies?
Yeah.
I watched Knocked Up, which I thought was pretty good. Catherine Hegel. And
This is the end.
I have watched This Is the End. I've watched 30 Minutes or Less, which I thought was funny.
Right.
Yeah, I watched okay. in terms of my most watched comedy, I have to say Step Brothers and 21 Jump Street and I Love You Man are really up there.
Those are good ones.
Those are really good ones.
Those are very good ones. So those, I mean, I think I would put Superbad and Step Brothers as like, you know, Dumbo comedy movies.
I feel like they're not nearly dumb enough. The Nice Guys, I think, is it The Nice Guys?
Oh yeah, with
Will Ferrell and the guy who's always angry at everyone, Mark Wahlberg.
No, so the Nice Guys is with Ryan.
Yes, I'm thinking of somebody else. I'm talking
Ryan
about the movie
Gosling
where
and
they replace Samuel L. Jackson as the cops. What is it? The Next Ones or the
Oh,
next
I know you're talking The Other Guys.
The
Also
Other
very
Guys.
funny.
It is
Also
funny.
very funny. Actually, so the guy who directed that
Mhm.
is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the same guy who directed The Big Short. Am I
Really?
right on that?
You probably are, because The Big Short is somewhat funny. So I could definitely see that. Yes.
Fuck, who's the? Anyway, I love The Big Short. And it's the guy, it's Adam McKay. The same, like,
Okay.
best friends. He was best friends with Will Ferrell guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think some of my favorite like all-time comedy movies are unfortunately Adam Sandler movies.
Nothing wrong with that.
Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison. Really funny, man. Like, I don't know, those movies colored my childhood with a lot of laughs. So yeah, it's a weird thing, man. I grew up with Adam Sandler as this really funny guy, and now he's on my list for a lot of serious roles.
Right. I know.
Rob, did you like Grown Ups? Grown Ups? What the fuck is Grown Ups? I have seen it. I'm sure I've seen it. That's My Boy is the epitome of slapstick. Dude, Vanilla Ice is a full-on character.
Yeah.
Grown Ups.
I think if we're going into like,
oh god, I hated Grown Ups. Now I know.
Did you like No Country?
No Country for Old Men is literally on my top 10 all time.
Really
I can
good.
recite. I'm pretty sure I can recite that Anton Chigurh famous scene pretty much verbatim.
It's a very, very good movie.
It is a great movie. There is a beautiful analysis on it. I'm forgetting the channel that did it, but it really just changed. I really, I consider, look, I'm a filmmaker. I've made 13 films. I've written 44 scripts. I have watched a countless number of movies. I've run 7 years of a film festival. I still believe that I need sometimes explainer videos to get deeper nuance to things that I might have missed on the first watch.
Oh,
and I have
100%.
no shame in that. And with
That's
No
why I
Country
like
for Old
watching
Men,
movies multiple times.
that's true. That's true. And therein lies the sort of point that I think I had sold myself on for a very long time, which is, what if watching movies over and over again, especially at different intervals in your life, was actually deeply informative, because the you that's watching it is always different, right? Me watching something, like for instance, me watching Lion King as a kid, right? Totally
Right.
different experience than me watching Lion King potentially in the future as a father.
Right.
Because I would identify more with Mufasa than with Simba, and then
Sure.
that whole thing changes, right? So I sometimes have sold myself on the value of that. But there was this video that I watched once on YouTube, and by a YouTuber that I can't remember right now, and he was talking about the difference between passive viewing and active viewing. And he said that a lot of us have passive viewing experience. We put things on just to kind of watch them in the background. They sort of fade, we fall asleep. And then there's active viewing, when we are actively trying to engage with the material, trying to, maybe even conquer difficult ideas within the material. And that is very different. And I was like, man, when I'm rewatching Friends for the second time, or when I'm rewatching The Office for the third time, that's definitely passive viewing. I'm not looking for Easter eggs. I'm not dissecting the dialogue. So it is more like that. So I think I'm just happy that more recently I have just been getting into active viewing.
I mean, I think there's something to be said about well, I would say with music, it's like 95% of people, or I shouldn't put that kind of total on it, but most people listen to music passively, and
Okay.
active listening does, like, as a musician, as somebody who grew up with that as a love and something that I've chased after for years. I only listen to music, even if I'm doing something else while listening to music, I'm still listening to it actively,
Okay.
right? Whereas I feel like for most people, it's just like that's what happens. That is what's going on in the background, right? Like I'm working out at the gym, so I need something to pump me up or whatever. Whatever they
Yes.
put something on. If I'm going for a walk, if I'm in the car, if I'm doing, that's where music sort of comes in handy as a way to. I can't watch anything right now if I'm in the car, so.
Mhm.
But like no, when I would say when I'm listening to music, I would say 80% of the time I'm listening actively. When I'm watching anything on TV, whether it's a series or a movie, I'm watching it actively like 99%. The only thing I'm ever watching passively is if my wife puts on one of those horrible cooking shows or something like that. Those cooking um those you ever see these cooking shows where they put
The only cooking show I've ever watched is no, I don't want to say if that's true. Maybe one of the only cooking shows I've ever watched is Gordon Ramsay.
Mhm.
Everything Gordon
same,
Ramsay.
same kind of
I just really enjoy watching that British dude yell at everybody. It's hilarious.
same kind of thing. It's they pit chefs against one another, and like whoever cooks the best thing wins. That if she's
Does a
watching one of
British
those,
guy yell at them if they
yes,
do a bad
exactly.
job?
Yeah, that's right.
Just find any British guy, literally anyone on the street. It sounds credible.
Yeah, it's true.
When
It's
a
true.
British person calls your food bland, oh God, you have really sunk to the new hell.
That's right. Oh,
Yeah.
Gregory, I'm a musician, and I agree. I'm always involved with the mechanics of what I'm hearing. You like it. It gets. Listen, Gregory is. I'm assuming, like me, insofar as that he grew up pre-internet, right? So when you put something on, that's you're immersed, right? When I used to listen
Mm.
to, I'm dating myself a little bit here, but when I
You
was in
already
high
gave us your
school,
age. You
what's that?
can't date yourself after you tell us how old you are, Vince.
Yeah, true. But when I would put on a Pearl Jam record, or I put on a Nirvana record, or I put on a Led Zeppelin record, whatever I was listening to at the time,
Hmm.
I was immersed. I was engulfed
Okay.
and forgetting about whatever's going on around me at the time. Queen, same thing. The first time I ever heard that shit, I was like you at the end of that movie that you were describing. Just like, what am I hearing?
Okay.
And it was always, there was typically always bands that like created their own thing, right? Um, it says there are a lot of parallels with what you do with the films. That it's funny, you rattled off of these films that I've never even heard of,
Mhm.
and I took notes. Like I typed a few of them into a browser here, and I just quickly read up on them as you were talking. I'm just like, yeah, these look really good. I should probably dig into these a little bit more because they're not Hollywood blockbusters. And then I thought back.
Curating film festivals is like it's given me a unique ability to do this, right?
Totally. And even the films that I've attended at your festival, I'm just like, why don't I see more of these? This is crazy. Like you can tell that there's a lot of soul in these that
Well,
you know.
what's interesting is like, we used to, at least I would imagine that in the 90s, in the 80s, in the 70s, whatever, you could walk up to somebody and ask them what they thought of a particular politician or a particular policy or a particular bit of music. And you could get something that felt very distinct from the next person you were going to ask about that, right? I don't think I can go to a Taylor Swift concert and ask 100 people what they feel about Taylor Swift and get really different answers about
Mhm.
why they like her. I think all the answers are going to be pretty much the same.
Yeah.
They're all favorite songs are going to be pretty much the same. And I've always felt that people were very much easier to control when they were more homogenous. So
Mhm.
I think diversity makes people harder to control.
Yeah.
Families make people harder to control. Original thoughts make people harder to control. Attention spans make people harder to control. When people have a greater attention span, they can dig further into things. I've actually thought a lot about like these lives and how slow building they are, and they're not snappy. There's nothing snappy about them, right? I may be talking fast because I'm like way over caffeinated, but in the grander scheme of things, my girlfriend asked me at some point, she's like, what are you attempting to do? And I was like, well, one of the side quests that I have is to drastically build up the attention span of our average listener.
Right.
Because if you really do want to get my idea about, what the Raptors are going to be, I'm going to take you on a fucking 1.5 hour journey. But hopefully that 1.5 hour journey now makes long form content far more accessible to you, and maybe undoes some of the zapping of your brain that TikTok did for you. And
That's fair.
then, what's interesting is the originality of thought comes down also to the originality of experience. How can the originality of experience be even possible if we're all looking at the exact same media? It's impossible. If we all watch the exact same 25 films this week and have the exact same 85 reels that pop up on our timeline, this is the problem with viral video,
Right.
right? And I'm not even shitting on, popular things are usually popular because they are better than the less popular things, usually, but not always.
Right.
And there are films like Strange Darling and The Wailing that are easily better than many Hollywood blockbusters. Like, not even just on the story's better. Fuck, the acting's better. The visual effects might be better. Literally everything's better but the marketing. That's it. So I'm supposed to hate on a film because it's South Korean?
Right. It's funny the way it's funny how you just described your long form content, because so if I'm like on the go, if I'm running errands, if I'm at the gym, if I'm in between doing things, which is often, a lot of my life is just like, running around, picking somebody up, like going to this place, going to that place.
Yeah.
I'm listening to YouTube content passively, right? Until I listen to your shit. When I listen to your shit, I'm engaged and I'm doing it actively, and it's almost like a cleanse. There's a brain fog that I get. Like if I'll watch a bunch of different YouTube videos, and I love the NBA, so I go to different teams. So I'll go to a different, like Dallas Mavericks. I'll check out their stuff for a little while. I'm interested in the Houston Rockets, and I'll just it's one 5 to 10 minute video after another while I'm doing these things on the go, and I'm listening to them passively, picking up like little bits of information here and there. But inevitably at the end of a day where I've listened to a whole bunch of them, I have a weird brain fog. But if I watch one of your videos, it's not like that, because it's a discussion, it's a conversation. It's not like, okay, we're coming at you here with fast, hard hitting quotes, and like, oh, this is the person that said this, and then this person said this, and like, look at these stats over there.
Yeah.
It's like it's usually you talking to somebody else, or you talking about something that interests you with the team, right? So it's not as confusing, and it's not as like mind melding.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I hope other people feel that way as well. I was thinking a lot yesterday, and I'm not sure
why you have your audience.
Audience is awesome. I was thinking a lot about, this thing that happened with Vince Carter. And again, I understand that Vince had his own, stuff that happened, but I always like to think, that 16-year-old Rob was really upset at what was happening to his favorite player. Like it's these early experiences that really build us and kind of shape us as people. We see our parents struggle, or we see a sibling struggle with addiction, and we make that decision at that point. We're never going to touch drugs. Or we have a parent who's in AA, and we're like, we're never going to touch alcohol, something of that sort. Or maybe we see our father womanizing and say, shit, women are not fucking anything, I'm going to womanize too. I think we all get a blueprint for our lives.
Sure.
And I think these missions and these early things that we kind of go through shape that. And I think, as much as it sounds crazy to say, what happened to Vince was personally hurtful to me. I felt like, it sounds stupid, it sounds very parasocial, but understand, I didn't have a father, I didn't have an older brother. To me, Vince was like a bit of a superhero.
Right.
And to watch a whole bunch of people sort of undress my superhero in the
Sure.
street and just kind of walk him and say he didn't love the game, say he hated our city, say all that stuff. It really bothered me. And when I found out it wasn't true, it's almost like I started to make this sort of like mission in my mind of like, how can I become the type of person who could like never let this happen? That's when I started like interning at Bleacher Report, and then I wanted to become a sports writer. And I was like, maybe if I become the best sports writer in the world, I can correct the record on Vince Carter, because now that I know the truth, all I need is a platform. So I started writing articles, and I had like 100+ articles at some point, but it just didn't matter. It wasn't big enough. People didn't know me. I didn't have a face. It's like, how are you supposed to, override all these media people? There's so many voices against it. So yeah, it's just been in the back of my mind. Okay, maybe I can't undo the Vince thing, even though I've been a very, very loud voice for forgiveness and healing and, re-examination of that entire process. But can
Right.
I at least, open enough of the media's vault that people can start to revolt? And now I got to tell you, I thought that Pensar Basketball was going to be the sole defender of Scotty Barnes against the big bad media, that every single time they're going to question his work ethic or question his intelligence or whatever, that Pensar Basketball is just going to run on his fucking neck the way I did last year, the way I did the year before. Josh Bloomberg's a piece of shit, blah, 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 will lose, exaggerating, blah, blah, blah. These guys are haters. But now I don't even have to do it. I don't have to do it. I don't have to do anything. Literally, one of these guys literally writes one thing about Scotty. There's like 85 fucking downvotes on that tweet. There's like 25 people calling them out for their media bias. And I was like, oh man, this was easy. That's all it took. I don't need to do shit. I just needed to expose the playbook. And now the playbook has been exposed. It doesn't work anymore.
Right.
So weird roundabout way of saying that's probably why I do this.
Well,
Overall, it is like to do well by the players, like who are doing good. And it's like, it sucks because, Vince was really hurt by what happened. Like he was really hurt for like years. I know he didn't talk too much about it, but people close to him would say like, he's really bothered by how things ended in Toronto. He's really bothered by how fans felt about him. And he would come here and he would put on a brave face and he did hit a game winner against us, but you could tell like it really hurt. And those tears that he shed in 2014 when we finally gave him the ovation, or 2016 or 2014, whatever the fuck it was, and again him being just choked up at the jersey retirement announcement. This is not fake. This is all real. Like this really meant something to him,
Right.
And then people don't realize what an ambassador this guy was while he was here.
Yeah.
Like, he made being a Raptor cool.
Yeah.
Like that is so underrated, and he was the first one to do it.
Yeah.
Like he stayed when nobody expected him to stay, and this media place just didn't fucking care. And now, like, yeah. So I'm just happy. Like right now, I'm just very, very thankful and grateful that this situation has kind of come full circle, and now we will see November 2nd, and it's gonna be one of the most joyous and happiest days of my life. Like, yeah. So many people I know are deeply, deeply, deeply just happy about the situation.
I assume you're going to be at the game.
I don't know.
So, it's a maybe?
It is a maybe. It is a maybe. We will see. We will see what tickets look like. If the tickets are like $600-$700, I don't know, man. I mean, I get it. I want to be there. It's a huge thing. It sounds crazy to say $700 would get in the way of me being there.
$700 would definitely be the way of me getting there. That's for goddamn sure.
Yeah, I mean,
1,000%. I would not go for $700, but that said, I would still like to go.
Yeah. I don't know. And also I want to thank you for telling me to go to Cigarettes After Sex.
Oh yeah.
The
You ended up going.
We did go. So
Nice.
a big shout out to Leanne Chapman for gifting us those tickets, because she couldn't make it, and my girlfriend and I went, and my girlfriend did not really care for the music at all.
Okay.
I didn't expect to like it, because the way you described it to me, it was not my jam.
Right.
But one of the songs really fucking stuck with me, to the point where I literally listened to it like 85 times the next day. It's called Apocalypse.
Oh yeah, I know that song.
It's really good. It
So
is one of my favorite songs.
I think, as a music absorber,
Mhm.
I don't love the band.
Okay.
There's certain elements to it. Sorry, I want to qualify this by saying there are no bad artists out there. Okay, like
I disagree.
for well, I'll give you some context. People hate the band Nickelback, right? They, for whatever reason, they love to hate on Nickelback. Okay, I've in my life never put on a Nickelback record myself because it's just not my jam. It's just not my thing. But
Okay.
God forbid anyone tells Nickelback to fuck off or don't make music. No, you do your thing. You make your music, you make your living. If you love it, then hey, more power to you. Right?
Okay.
Like I said, I'm not a Nickelback fan. So in that same vein, I'm not a massive fan of theirs. I feel like it's a little too, like, the way I consume music is I listen very much for creative lyric and melodies, right? And
Mhm.
so it doesn't pull me in the same way like I don't know, Paul Simon or something. Like he's a guy I really like. But I do see why people I see the appeal, and I can get why people can get behind it. One of my best friends, who's also a musician, like
Mhm.
he's the guy that I was actually trying to get to buy those tickets from. He's a jazz singer named Matt Dusk. You may have heard of him. He's a
No.
Canadian Toronto guy.
No.
Anyway,
I think
he's
you will find as you get to know me better that I know an embarrassingly little about jazz.
oh yeah, no,
It's awful. It's really awful.
no.
It's truly sinful how little I know about jazz.
Hey, listen, I studied jazz, and I used to sing it for a while, and I went away from it because it
I'm
just
sorry.
like,
This comment just got me. I'm so sorry.
oh, this is how you remind me? Yeah, that's funny.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen. I'll leave it there. We'll say I can see the appeal. They have a little bit of a Lana Del Rey vibe. Do you like her?
I do like Lana Del Rey.
Yeah.
Lana
They
Del
got-
Rey, the song, hold on. What's it called? There's a couple. But one is it's not Strange and Beautiful, because that is Aqualung, which is an amazing song, by the way. If you've never heard it, definitely check out Aqualung, Strange and Beautiful. I think you'll like it. Have you heard it?
I've heard of Aqualung, but I've never checked them
Okay,
out.
Strange and Beautiful is a good song. God damn it. Young and Beautiful by
Okay.
Lana Del Rey. I like that song. That's a pretty good song. And then there's Summertime Sadness. I think that's
Oh,
her
yeah.
song as well.
Yeah, I've
It's
heard
not a
of it.
bad song. I mean, okay, so here's the thing. I never listened to Taylor Swift. I have not listened to one full song of Taylor Swift or Justin Bieber in my whole life. I don't know why my hatred, it's not even hatred, it's just disdain. Is disdain better than hatred? I don't know. It's so compartmentalized when it comes to certain artists. You know what I mean? It's like I totally listened to Backstreet Boys. I totally listened to NSYNC. I listened to these bands growing up. I think I even had one of their CDs. I'm pretty sure. You know?
A lot of those bands have like some pretty fucking heavy writers behind them. Like
Did
they're oh yeah. They have
Hmm.
like really, really heavy writers. Like
Hmm.
really, really hip cats that are we'll say they're not writing like, especially even I want to say like qualified as the boy bands from the 90s and early 2000s,
Mhm.
more so, but they had like really hip writing behind them. There's a song, who sang the song Gone? Is that NSYNC?
Yes.
That song is
I answered that way too quickly. Hold on, let me think about it for a second. Gone. Who was that? Was that Jay-Z? Was that
Yeah.
Nas? Was that Biggie? No, it
That
was
is a hip
Fuck my life.
fucking song. Really hip. And like I listen back now, I'm just like, I think at the time I was just like, oh, I'm not listening to NSYNC. I'm a grown ass man. I'm like, we're not listening to boy band stuff.
In my
And then
defense, I'm younger than you, so I'll forgive myself for being 12 years old when
that's
NSYNC
right.
was
That's
popular.
right. No, I would have been 22 at the time. So yeah, no, that
Oh
was
shit, he's right. It's not NSYNC, it's Justin Timberlake. He's right.
But he was the lead
He's
singer.
he's the lead singer, but in fairness, he did have a considerable solo career afterwards.
Oh, okay, so that was after he went solo.
Yes.
Okay, so that makes a little
Is
bit.
it weird that I'm proudly happy that I was wrong? Because that shows me as not some sort of closet NSYNC fan.
Right.
I'm not some super NSYNC fan that knows their entire discography. I really don't.
Buddy, I'll
But
do you one better. I know I can play those songs.
I
I can
mean,
play and sing
you can at least provide some sort of financial, incentive for being able to do this as a
Right.
cover. Just you're not
Right.
just like some person who just has these songs on loop in your head all the time, keeping you up at night. I'm just kidding.
No, that's
No.
right.
Okay. But I was thinking the other day I was looking through my old CDs and I have a CD from 2000 which I purchased in a street fair in New York of Alicia Keys. What?
Nice.
I knew about Alicia Keys before she blew up.
Nice.
I also knew about Rihanna before she blew up.
Oh, nice.
I also knew about Weeknd before he blew up. So it was like literally 3 artists that are awesome. That are 3 of my favorite artists. I knew about all of them before they blew up.
Nice. That's great. It's nice to be to get in on the ground floor. I was
Yes.
we'll say I was one of the ones that listened to like the Weezer Blue record before it became a massive thing.
I've never heard of the Weezer Blue record.
You know the band Weezer, correct?
Nope.
Really?
Yeah, really. What is Weezer?
What? Say it ain't so. My love is a heartbreaker. Come on, Weezer.
No. Am I stupid? I don't know it.
Chat, get on this. The Weezer. It's not the Weezer. It's just Weezer. Oh,
That's
that is
hilarious.
bro.
No, I do not.
You got to check out Weezer,
dude. I mean, in fairness, I had music on my iPod. This was
Right.
exposed when I was 18. Someone found my iPod. Have I ever told this story online? I had like close to 30 different languages on my iPod. So like some of my favorite artists are not English artists. They're Serbian artists. They're Arabic artists. Like I'm a big Nancy Ajram fan, which would surprise everybody. Like any Arabic person I've ever met. And they're just like, you know Nancy Ajram? I was like, dude, I literally know her entire song. Like I know her entire discography. So I've just been a fan of like a lot of different music. It speaks to me at different times. Like there's a Farsi duo, Andy and Kuros, that like, again, this is the amazing thing about always living in such big cities is you have this incredible depth of like the people around you like are from so many different countries. And so sometimes you listen to them, listening to some of their music. Maybe it's like Spanish music, maybe it's Italian music, maybe it's, Indian music. And you'd be like, damn, that's a good beat. Like that's a good beat. What are they saying? And then you start looking up the lyrics and you're like, damn, this is kind of deep. I like this. Maybe it speaks to you, but it's not in your language. But then, I don't know, you download it, you put it on your iPod and it plays 85 times and now you just know it. Right. And now you're like, shit, I wonder what else this person did. So dude, I had like hundreds and hundreds of non-English songs. Like I'm a huge fan of Juanes, is a Colombian singer. Juanes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But there's like so many good songs. But that's an amazing song, right? Yeah. And I mean, there's so many artists like that. Brazilian artists, there's Mexican artists, there's there's so many really, really talented vocalists from India. There's incredible music from the Middle East. And I'm like, music is so universal, right? And again, it's speaking so eclectically and it's so interesting because you see these people who are not necessarily influenced by each other, but they're super influenced by each other. You can see influence of Prince on Arabic artists, and that's just very wild as well, right? You can see the influence of Eraserhead as a cinema, thing on Taiwanese films. You can fully see it.
Cool.
So it's just like an amazing way to see how art and to some extent sport connects the world.
For
So
sure.
art and sport are both things that I think connect the world. Michael Jordan connected the whole fucking world.
It's true.
I'm desperately trying to bring this conversation back to basketball. I'm leaping at tangents, but yes, my point is that everything I enjoy is connective.
For sure.
Yeah.
Buddy, I gotta call it a night. It's
3:12
12,
in the
and
morning. Yes.
you should probably wrap up as well. But before
Yes.
you got to check out. You know what?
Don't play it.
I'm gonna send you a list of. I'm gonna send you a list of like 10 artists, or like actually, I'll start it at 3. Here's
Okay.
3 records you should.
Is it
listen
jazz?
to. I love some jazz artists. I'm into some jazz artists, but I'll say the stuff that I grew up on would have been more considered rock and roll, right?
Okay.
But
So
there's
basically,
like,
I missed all of rock and roll. So you're telling me about Weezer, bro? You could ask me about like some very popular rock bands. I don't know if Weezer is a very popular rock band.
they are.
They are. Okay, that's embarrassing. Okay, does it make you feel better to know that I had a Creed CD?
Creed.
Yeah.
I think I had a Creed CD when BMG was a thing, and they would send you those, fucking 12 CDs for a penny or whatever it was. I had one of
dear
those.
God. Okay. Honestly, I have
With arms wide open. Yeah, like
yeah,
all that
exactly.
shit.
So here's the thing. I just don't have a lot of exposure to rock and roll. I just don't.
Right.
It's just not in my wheelhouse. I listen to rap music and I listen to international music. I even listen to some country music.
Sure.
I like country music. I liked Travis Tritt.
Okay.
Okay.
Pulling out some old school shit. The
It's not,
OGs.
that's not old school. Is Travis Tritt old school?
I think so. I think
like
he's an
Shania-
older artist.
I had a totally non-sexual crush, but sort of sexual prepubescent crush on Shania Twain. Thought she
Who
was
didn't?
yeah,
Who didn't?
for real, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, but I didn't listen to rock and roll. To me, honestly, it just felt like super North American. Maybe I'm wrong. I
We'll
didn't
say, yeah,
like
well,
Red Hot Chili Peppers. I think I know like 2 songs, maybe 1 song. I know the Zephyr song, and that's
I mean,
only
it all
because
came-
it was part of an Alessandro Del Piero mixtape.
What?
That's the only reason I know the
Chili
Zephyr
Peppers?
song. No, the Zephyr song.
Oh, Zephyr. Okay.
It's by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
right?
the Zephyr song. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I only know that song because it was a Alessandro Del Piero mixtape. And
Oh.
I only know the Killers, which is really embarrassing to admit, because it was an Andrea Bargnani mixtape.
Wow. Okay.
Andrea Bargnani is the reason that I've even heard of the Killers. So rock and roll, I don't know if Killers is rock and roll. Is Killers rock and roll?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, just rock and roll is just missing from my wheelhouse. I don't know it. I think I've listened to a little bit of YouTube, but like that's yeah. I don't have it.
I've sung the song "Mr. Brightside" by the Killers easily 300 times in my life.
Okay, nice.
In front,
I sang Usher.
It's
I
one of
sang
the
Usher,
closers
You Got
of
It
my
Bad.
band.
I'm saying Usher, You Got It Bad. Like basically it's just R&B. So for me,
Yeah.
it's R&B, hip hop, rap. That's my wheelhouse.
Listen, rock and roll it's a derivative of rhythm and blues, like R&B in the most original sense.
Mhm.
Little Richard. It is an American born thing adopted overseas in Great Britain as well, obviously. But yeah, no, it's definitely if you're into all different forms of music and you
Yeah.
don't have any sort of preconceived notions going into it, I can give you a lot of really great stuff that sort of changed my life for sure as an artist, as a musician. You start to delve a little bit more deeply and in the same fashion that when you consume a movie, when you're watching a movie, I feel like you probably want to read into it a little bit more than your average person. And so that nature will likely come to the forefront when listening to that music as well, and it'll likely inform your inform your listening as well.
Absolutely. Will do. Okay. Have
All
a
right,
good night.
pal. We'll see
Big
you
sh-
soon.
See ya.
Take
Okay.
care.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Well, that was great. It was great to have a conversation with Vince. I love calling shows. I've missed them so much. Like it's crazy. Like people often ask like, what is the appeal of these? It's so great to connect with people and to have these conversations. And I think that I've been working for pretty much my whole life, but specifically over the last 2 years to get better at this. Like I want to get better at this. So I'm really happy that we had a conversation with Vince today, that we had a conversation with the recruiter dude in the last live. And what I can't wait for is to have these conversations about trade deadline and free agency and preseason. And I look forward to more of you calling. And I realize that some people have called into these shows in the past and maybe felt that I was a little bit short or a little bit rude or maybe a little bit dismissive of an opinion that didn't agree with me. I'll promise you right now, like as God is my witness, I'm going to be a lot more willing to hear you out. Like, don't get rude, don't get too disrespectful. But if you just don't agree with me, I'm not going to yell you off the air. So if I've done that in the past, I apologize. I'm getting a lot better at it, and I look forward to having more productive conversations. Conversations are great. Discourse is great. Dissenting opinions are great. Cinema is great. Music is great. And yeah, I hope you guys had a good one. I hope you have a great morning. And this is October. And just before we exit, thank you to Gregory again, to Gregory again, to Gregory again, to Brad, and to Gregory again. Um, like again, haven't had we haven't had this many super chats in over a long time. We've been very slow in the content game. We're gonna get back to it. A lot of you have been asking what's happening with this. What's happening with this Scotty Barnes video? What's been going on? Honestly, I feel like he's about to take a massive jump up. And I feel like I'm going to immensely regret making a video before it happens without all the footage of what is happening because I want this to be like a definitive Scotty has arrived, pay attention world type of video. And a lot of research and a lot of work has already gone into it. But maybe this is like the KD doc that never came out, which is like just a video that I overthink and overthink and overthink until it just the time passes and he's on another team. But with Scotty, I think, I just want a little bit of preseason action. Is that okay? I think we're going to get a nice little touch of, preseason and get a look at what these players look like because we've seen them in gyms and open runs, etc. But really, like, there's nothing like watching them against other NBA players. And, you can watch Scotty Barnes running up and down the court in a TMU, hitting smooth jump shots. But you're like, well, what happens when I put Jason Tatum in front of you? What happens when I put Kyle Kuzma in front of you? Can you still do that against an NBA player? And I just think the thing with Scotty is that, yes, he always can. It's never a matter of it can translate because the only question with Scotty last year was, can he get to his spots better? That was it. It was not a question of what he would do once he got there. He was literally having trouble walking from one place to another on the court. That was his only issue. His handle wasn't tight enough to just navigate. So if he wanted to get to the left block, how does he go from the top of the key to the left block? He has to dribble there. He can't teleport. So that's the skill that's missing. That ability to get to places before the defense figures out what you're doing. There's just a little too slow, little too slow, little too uncreative, little too rigid, right? You notice with Scotty right now is you're seeing him being a little bit leaner. I guarantee he's a little bit more flexible. I think he's about to shock a lot of people. Really. Oh, I didn't know that. Where am I? What part? That's super cool. Big shout outs to Maximilian. I didn't know if I was, but that's super cool. He told me that I would be. Give me a rough time of where. I will definitely. It's awesome. Look, honestly, I've been doing this content game for a long time, away from Pensar basketball, obviously Bleacher Report, obviously, with mixtapes and all that stuff. I've been in and out of this for a while. Maximilian has been one of my favorite content creators, mixtape artists. It was him, and then there was this other guy. I'm forgetting his name, Expired Pineapple, Expired something. These guys just made like legendary mixes. Like, and I'm a big fan of mixtapes, right? I grew up in the early 2000s. I believe it's year 3. Oh, great. Okay, cool. I'll check it out. Hey, RKERTV with the super chat. Here's for constant change and your ability to do so and to mark a new season. Cheers, man. By the way, it's Rocker TV. Oh, okay. Okay. We'll call it Rocker TV as opposed to RKER TV. Rocker TV. Okay. Correct me if I butcher that again. But thank you so much, and cheers to you for a new season. And I'm kind of, again, after so much of a day, right? I have absorbed 3 hours of the panel. I've absorbed 4 hours. I've absorbed another hour prior to the panel listening to the Raptors Media Day. It's been just all day. It's been absorbing. And at the end of such a long, 15, 16-hour day, because really I woke up at 8 o'clock, for media day to get ready for it and stuff. So we are like really bridging in on 19 hours awake. I'm just wondering what stuck. What message stuck with me? Is it Masai and Ed Rogers? And apparently it's Kumbaya. Is it, this conversation I just had with Vince? What is it? What's really sticking out? And what keeps sticking out with me is Jakob Poeltl. It just keeps sticking to me that this notion of, a positive story, like that will be a surprise, that and again, I told you, Jakob is the guy who keeps it real. He is the one who has the not only the ability to articulate, but also the insight to like the basketball intelligence to do it, but also like he has no filter. That's the Austrian in him. He has no filter. So he's just going to tell you how it is. He has no fucks. He doesn't care. He doesn't care like how he comes off, and I love that about him. That's like probably the most underrated part about him. Is just he tells you the truth. And so he said it nicely, but he said it honestly. And I think that that is probably the message that is being transferred to the locker room, which is not, oh, we're going to lose, which is what Michael Grange has been fishing for 4 months now, which is, oh, we're committed to losing. No, not committed to losing. We're just committed to not shortcutting the winning. That is the slogan for the year. And that's what's really stuck with me is that this team is not going to tank. What this team is going to do is they are going to give this roster a chance to prove that they're better than that they think they are. And honestly, when you have a moment tomorrow with some clear mind, really go back and watch that Toronto Raptors team in 2013, 2012, and tell me they were one Rudy Gay swap away, because maybe the Toronto Raptors are really one Bruce Brown for a rim protector away, or one Kelly and Ochai at the deadline away, or maybe an Ochai and Davion for an upgrade at the backup point guard away, or maybe a step from Scotty away. Because I'll tell you right now, the 13-14 Raptors that sparked We the North had no superstars as good as Scotty Barnes. There's not one player on that team that is better than Scotty Barnes. I'll go to my grave saying that. And Scotty Barnes last year is a way worse player than Scotty Barnes today. So again, I'm not saying that if I was betting that I would say the Raptors make the playoffs. No, I'm not an idiot. I'm just saying they have a better chance of making the playoffs than being bottom 5. And to the subject of this video, Toronto is almost ready to run the East again. I really believe that. That's not clickbait for me. I believe that the Toronto Raptors will be insanely competitive in the Eastern Conference starting in 2026. Whether that means there's another top 5 pick, this year or not, it does not matter to me. I think the progression that these players are going to make, the chemistry, the development of Darko, I think all of it, the drama effect, all of it, the slumping of the top in the Eastern Conference. Yep, I think this is their conference 2026 to 2032 is a clear window. And this concept of windows really, really, I started thinking about this a lot when I started thinking about the Karl Anthony Towns and Julius Randle trade. These are two teams on different windows. Karl Anthony Towns and Julius Randle, this swap, obviously, if you're the team with the older star who might only have 2 years, I mean, for the Knicks, they don't know how long Jalen Brunson is going to be on this level. They really don't. You cannot assure it. You cannot guarantee it. So for them, they have to maximize this limited window they have because they've been thirsting for a player as good as Jalen Brunson for a very long time. The version of Jalen Brunson we saw last year is probably better than most versions of Carmelo Anthony we saw in New York. So they've been really thirsting for this player for a very long time. Who is the last Knick who's as good as Jalen Brunson last year, which is a top 12 box plus minus guy in the league? Patrick Ewing? I don't think Latrell Sprewell or Allen Houston, respect to those two, I have their autograph. I don't think they ever quite hit top 12 player in the league status. I think Spree was close, maybe, if you squint really hard. Allen Houston was certainly paid like one, but these guys, and shout outs to Allen Houston, really, really great person. But I don't really think those guys were that level. Jalen Brunson might be one of the greater Knicks in the last 35 years. So you have an obligation as a front office to really compliment that. But then also, on the other hand, Anthony Edwards is the truth. Anthony Edwards is the franchise savior that they've been waiting for in Minnesota possibly since Kevin Garnett. And so both franchises basically queued up a trade with the other that fit their superstars timeline. So the Raptors, they believe that they have a star in Scotty Barnes, much, to the media's chagrin, or they don't like it, whatever, fuck it, doesn't matter. Move, go to another city, cover another team. But that means that you tailor everything to the 23-year-old's timeline. And you have to wait and see when that 23-year-old is willing to take that jump to the point where he can actually lead you through a playoff round. Because I'll tell you right now, Scotty took a major, major step from where the Raptors thought he would be at the beginning of last year. If he does it again, you'll see the gears turn very quickly. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Gregory saying good night. Thank you for yet another super chat. That makes 8 super chats. That is very, very generous of you guys. Thank you so much. And I apologize for the clunky start to this video. Hopefully tomorrow I'll have a time to clip the beginning. Unfortunately, the minute I clip the beginning, the chat is completely lost. So yeah, that would be unfortunate. But nevertheless, have a good night, guys. And liberal with the timestamp for that Vince Carter documentary where I am featured. That's super cool. That's really cool. I'm happy to be part of it. And shout outs to Maximilian for putting in that type of work. 3.5 hour documentary. Trust me, I tell you as a filmmaker, 3.5 hours is no joke. So definitely go and check out Max's documentary and give it a watch and give it a listen. All right, talk to y'all later. Big shout outs to Vince. Big shout outs to Gregory. Big shout outs to Brad. Big shout outs to all of you for chilling with us until 3:30 in the morning. And Gregory saying VC deserves this. He absolutely does. All right. Talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.